What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto gets a Dojutsu from the gods Sasuke bashing? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Naruto groaned as he turned in his bed once more. The alarm clock went off again, and again, and again. Finally, he decided that he couldn't take no more of it. He got out of his bed, turned the alarm off, and looked at the calendar. June 16th. Shit was the one word that summarized Naruto's thoughts. Today was the day of the genin exams. No wonder his alarm clock had been set. He was Naruto Uzumaki, he didn't give a flying fuck when he was late or not. But he could never miss something as important to him as the genin exams. He dashed across the room, bursting through his bathroom door as he did so. Before he hopped in, he created 2 clones. "Akui, I need you to prep me a breakfast, ASAP," he said to the first one. He was Naruto's height of 5 feet 3 inches, with the signature golden spiky hair of Naruto's. Akui was clad in a blue shirt with an orange spiral on it. He wore black baggy pants and had googles on his head. Akui nodded before running off. Naruto turned his attention to the female clone. "Metsui, I need you to clean up my apartment," he ordered her. She was at a height of 5 feet 1 inch, with 2 ponytails hanging on either side of her head. She wore an orange shirt with the Konoha symbol centered on it. She also wore the black baggy pants, but did not have the googles that Naruto or Akui had. Metsui nodded before turning and summoning a group of clones that looked like Naruto. "Cleanup division, you know our duty," she said. They all nodded and sped off into the living room. Naruto sighed as he headed into his warm shower. Having my own army is freaking awesome, he thought. These excess chakra seals that turn the chakra into clones are so awesome. After taking a 5-minute shower, he ran out of the bathroom with his robe on. He quickly grabbed his black shirt with the kanji for leaf on the front and strength on the back, the black baggy pants that he wore, and his goggles before running back in. He ran back out merely a second later dressed. He stopped to grab his trench coat that he saw the 4th Hokage wear in many pictures. The difference was that instead of being white with red flames, it was white with black flames reminiscent of Amaterasu licking the bottom. On the back, the words, 5th Hokage, ran across it. Naruto's dream was to be a Hokage better than the 4th Hokage ever would be. And he would achieve it as soon as the old man retired. At least, that was his belief. He sat down and quickly demolished the bacon and eggs that Akui had made before dispelling said clone. He turned to Metsui and the cleanup division, to find that they too were done. He dispelled them as well before summoning 3 more clones. The first clone was Naruto's height. He looked exactly like Naruto did in terms of features, but his hair was black instead of yellow. He wore a green shirt with the words, "Bow down to me," written across it in big and orange letters. He wore the standard black baggy pants. "Hayasuke, you and the Taijutsu division meet on top of the Hokage monument to practice the fox style and Emperor's Guard katas," he said. Hayasuke nodded and left via open window. Naruto turned to the female in the middle. She was 5 feet 4 inches, with red hair that reached to her shoulders. She had the whiskers as all Naruto clones did. She wore a plain white shirt with the baggy pants. On her back was 2 identical blades, the standard Tanto swords. Her waist had a katana on it. "Anju, take the Kenjutsu division to training ground 44 and head to the A-class section with Jake and the ninjutsu division. Your objective is to survive the day without losing a single member." Both she and the third clone, clad in the same clothes as Hyoyuasake but with an orange shirt and green letters, nodded and disappeared in a shushin. Anju's shushin consisted of fire swirling around her before disappearing, while Jake's shushin was with the shadows of the apartment bending around him, swallowing him whole until he faded into nothingness. Naruto sighed. "Shika, Lisa, come out," he said to 2 more clones. Shika looked like Naruto without the trench coat, while Lisa was wearing Anju's clothes but looked like Metsui. "Shika, you and the tactics division need to go off and make some formations. Lisa, you and the torture and interrogation division have to go and practice in the Anbu headquarters. If anyone stops you, tell them that Ibiki and Enko called for you. And, if possible, find Kogari and the assassination division and tell them that they can dispel," he said. Shika nodded and phased through the apartment's walls, while Lisa gave a "hi" before disappearing in a swirl of water. Naruto looked at the alarm clock. It read 8:55. The academy began in 5 minutes. Naruto immediately ran out of the apartment, but not before activating the blood and chakra recognition seals. They wouldn't allow anyone but him to enter. He also activated the security and weapon seals, so that any intruder would be bombarded by a hail of weapons and Naruto would be alerted. He took off down the streets, blasting by several groups of people who jumped as he scared the crap out of them. He mentally snorted. Before, they treat me like shit. Now, because of my eyes, they worship the ground I walk on. Fucking hypocrites, he thought. Kyuubi chuckled. Hey, being worshipped is better than being hated, isn't it? He asked. True, but it's still sickening, he thought as his coat flew with the wind. He loved running this fast. The wind in his face, the scenery rushing by, the fast reflexes he had to dodge incoming traffic. It was so exhilarating. Finally he reached the academy. Knowing that he didn't have time to head up to the 4th floor, he channeled chakra to his legs and jumped towards the open window of his classroom. Soaring through the air was awesome, and he'd probably scare the crap out of Iruka. Sasuke would glare at him like the emo bitch he was, and everyone else that wasn't staring at the Uchiha would be looking at him with either envy or amazement. Iruka was sipping on his coffee, watching the class interact in what would be possibly their last class together. Kiba was making subtle advances on Hinata. Shino and Shikamaru were making light conversation. Choji was eating out of his chip bag. Ino and Sakura were arguing over Sasuke, who was glaring at the chalkboard as if its very existence pissed him off to no ends. Everyone else was just making a ton of needless noise and confusion. If Naruto's late again, I'm gonna. Iruka mumbled under his breath. Before he could finish his thoughts, however, he noticed a blur appear at the windowsill. Everyone else turned to it as well, to see Naruto sitting there without a care in the world. Hey, Iruka-sensei, I'm not late for the exams, am I? He asked. Iruka glanced at the clock. It had just struck 9 o'clock. No, Naruto, you just arrived in time. How did you get up here? Iruka asked. Naruto just looked at him. I jumped, he stated plainly. As he expected, Kiba and Sasuke scowled at him for showing off, while Shino, Shikamaru, and Choji didn't even lift an eyebrow. Ino and about a third of the girls in the class instantly swooned over him, while Sakura and about a half of the other girls stared at Sasuke. The rest of the girls got into their Shikamaru fangirl club, something the lazy Nara accidentally received after the class heard of his IQ and saw him beat Sasuke in a battle. And Hinata glanced at him every few seconds or so before looking away with a blush, something that Naruto noted in the very back of his mind. Teach me how to do that, Dobi. Sasuke demanded. Naruto looked at him in the eye. Nope, he said. Sasuke growled. You will teach me. Naruto merely shook his head in response. Learn it yourself, Uchiha. Just because your precious Sharingan resides within you does not make you automatically better than me. For if you did your studies, you'd know that of the 3 great Dojutsu, the Rinnegan the Dojutsu I have, not you is naturally the strongest. So sit the fuck down, shut the fuck up, and prepare your limp-dicked ass to take the exams. He stated. Sasuke growled, but Sakura was the first to make a move. Don't talk about Sasuke-kun like that, Naruto baka. She screamed as she attempted to hit the boy. Unfortunately for her, Naruto was still perched in the window. He merely leaned back as the blow passed over him. He then used his legs like a scissor to pin Sakura, and with pure leg strength, threw Sakura out the window. He did a backflip and grabbed a hold of the windowsill, and pulled himself back in. She'll be back in a little bit, Iruka-sensei. And before you go and scold me for doing that, if she can't survive that fall without damage, then she doesn't deserve to be a ninja. He stated. Iruka opened his mouth in response, but then realized that Naruto was right. Even a genin should have the skills to land properly. If she didn't, then she'd prove herself to be all book smarts but absolutely unskillful. Naruto decided to take a seat to the right of the Uchiha, where the pink-haired harpy had been sitting. The Uchiha gave him a passing glance and scowled but said nothing. Naruto smirked. He certainly put the bitch back in his place, or so he thought. As the class waited for Sakura to get her ass back to the room, Naruto noticed several pairs of eyeballs focused on him. He turned to meet all the looks. Instantly over half of the people staring at him looked away. Naruto grinned at those who still had the guts to stare at him. Personally, he thought that having guts was a huge factor in being a ninja. He first met the gaze of Kiba Inuzuka, the heir of the Inuzuka clan. Naruto decided that Kiba was good at taijutsu, but not really at anything other than that. He might be a ninja, but Naruto really wasn't sure. They were friends, not the best of friends, but they tolerated each other. Naruto didn't like that Kiba glared at him for talking to Hinata or outdoing him at something. Kiba, though unknown to the class, didn't like him mainly because that he was the object of the girl of his dreams. He then turned to Shino Aburame, a good friend of his. Shino was the heir of the Aburame clan. As all Aburames were, he was silent and intellectual. He felt that he and Shino had a somewhat special bond. Naruto was ostracized by something out of his control, while Shino was ostracized by something that had nothing to do with him. When he could get the stoic person to talk, they'd have a nice conversation. Naruto didn't mind being in silence with him, either, for unlike many his age, he found his time with Shino rather companionable than creepy. Naruto tore his eyes from Shino and turned to Shikamaru, one of his best friends in the academy. Heir of the Nara clan, Shikamaru was the laziest person Naruto knew, but also the smartest. The two had many fun times with each other. When Naruto felt the urge to go on a prank, Shikamaru was the first person he'd contact. Shikamaru, in turn, found someone who understood his passion for watching clouds and gave him a good match in shogi. Naruto's head of the tactics division, Shika, was even named after Shikamaru, a tactical genius by all means. Fourth on the list was Choji Akamichi, also a good friend of Naruto. He was Shikamaru's best friend, heir to the Akamichi clan and someone Naruto could share his ramen obsession with. Choji was big-boned, but Naruto knew better than to call him fat. Choji was also someone with whom he could prank or hang out with. Choji even went so far as to offer a bag of chips to Naruto, which, to any Akamichi, was a symbol of trust and friendship. Finally, he came to Hinata Hyuga, heiress of the Hyuga clan and a straight man's wet dream. She was, in Naruto's description once when she had found him half dead from chakra exhaustion, an angel from heaven. She had nice hair, a pretty face, a perfect body, a nice personality. Naruto felt that he could go on and on. But she would shy away from Naruto, who took it as she didn't like him, was afraid of him. Therefore, even though the two would make a perfect couple with Naruto's rather fierce and caring personality to Hinata's shy and loving one, they were not boyfriend and girlfriend. These five were basically Naruto's best friends in the academy, even though Kiba and him had some rough patches and Hinata and him barely interacted. That aside, the group of six were really close. "Hey guys, what's up?" Naruto asked to the five who were grouped together. "Nothing much, just getting ready to ace this exam," Kiba said confidently, borderline arrogantly. "Big words, Inuzuka. Can you back that up?" he retorted. Shikamaru groaned. "This whole test is troublesome. This is such a drag," he said rather sleepily. "Shikamaru, everything is a drag to you," Choji replied before stuffing his face once more with goods. "Naruto, how do you think that we'll all do?" Shino asked. He had experience with Naruto's predicting abilities. They were good, very much so. I'll probably finish first, depending on how hard I decide I want to work and how hard the Uchiha actually tries. You, Shino, can come in either third, fourth or fifth. You and Shikamaru are pretty even, and since you guys occasionally take taijutsu lessons with me, your taijutsu is way better than one of your clansmen. Shikamaru, if you put effort in it, you can make it to third place, but you'll be no lower than fifth, since your mom won't take that from you. Hinata should easily be the top kunoichi, and could make it to the fifth spot overall if you gave it your all. Choji can take sixth or seventh, and Kiba should be that other spot. After that, everyone else falls in place. I'm confident that we'll all make it through, though, he said to give everyone extra confidence. He didn't want his best buddies to fail, of course. After some more meaningless conversation, Sakura finally made it back up to the room. Iruka motioned her to an empty seat before using the scary head no jutsu to settle the class. "Alright, now that Sakura's here we can commence with the test." The test is divided into 5 parts. The first part, which we take now, is a written exam. You have 20 minutes to answer these 10 questions based on Konoha history, he said while handing the tests around. Naruto snorted. He took his village's history in pride, so he should take this part easily. Begin, he said as everyone got to working. 1. Who was the first Hokage? Naruto scribbled down Hashirama Senju. 2. What was the second Hokage's relation to the first Hokage? Naruto said that they were brothers. 3. Why was the fourth Hokage also known as the Yellow Flash? Naruto said that because of his thunder flying god technique, the Hirishin no Jutsu, with which he could obliterate entire armies in a single yellow flash. 4. What was the greatest disaster to befall Konoha? He snorted before writing down the Kyuubi's attack. This test was way too easy. 5. Name the 3 legendary Sannin and their Jonin sensei. Naruto wrote Jiraiya, the Toad Sannin; Tsunade, the Slug Sannin; Orochimaru, the Snake Sannin; and Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage. 6. Who is Kakashi Hatake? Naruto wrote down that Kakashi was a Jonin of Konoha who was world-renowned for using his Sharingan to master over 1,000 jutsu. At this, he mentally frowned since there weren't even that many in the world. 7. Name the major clans of Konoha. Hyuga, Uchiha, Aburame, Akamichi, Nara, Yamanaka, and Inuzuka. 8. Who is responsible for the Uchiha massacre? Itachi Uchiha. 9. What is Training Ground 44 known as? The Forest of Death. 10. What is the Anbu? The Anbu are a highly trained group of shinobi that take on the most dangerous of missions. They answer only to the Hokage and those in Anbu above them. Naruto grinned as he dropped his pencil. From the looks of it, he was the second done in 5 minutes. Sakura, of course, was first, because she was nothing but a textbook anyway. After the 20 minutes was up, Iruka turned to them. Next up is your throwing ability. We'll head outside to do this test. Class, get in a single file line and follow me to the throwing grounds. The class settled into the standard single file line, with Shino in the front and Ino in the back. Apparently, they were lined by their last names, which is why Naruto groaned. His last name of Uzumaki was, after all, second to last on the list. He figured that he'd somewhat pay attention. Class, this test is simple. You have 5 kunai to hit a dummy from 20 feet away, and then 5 shuriken to hit another dummy from 20 feet away. The process repeats except that it will increase from 20 feet to 30 feet. Vital areas are 5 points, while everywhere else is 1 point. Missing the target is a subtraction of 3 points. Shino, you're up first. Iruka explained. The Aburame nodded and went up. Naruto watched with interest as Shino connected on all 5 of his kunai from 20 feet, with 1 in the neck, 1 in between the eyes, 1 in the forehead, 1 in the lung, and 1 that stuck out of his arm. The shuriken went slightly worse, with 2 in the neck, 1 in the stomach, 1 to the heart, and 1 that grazed the head but missed. From 30 feet, Shino actually did better. 1 kunai went in the heart, 1 to the left lung, 1 to the right lung, 1 in the forehead, and 1 in the neck. The shuriken also did better. 2 hit the heart, 1 in the right lung, 1 in between the eyes, and 1 that struck his forehead. Iruka nodded while scribbling furiously. Alright, so that was 4 to the neck, 2 in between the eyes, 3 to the forehead, 4 to the heart, 4 in the lungs, and since that was all vital areas, that turns into an 85. The 1 in the stomach was 3 points, since it's a 50-50 chance that the person lives or dies. There was 1 in the arm, so that brings you to an 89, but since you missed a shuriken, your final score is an 86. Choji, step up if you will. Choji did worse than the Aburame, with 1 kunai to the neck, 1 to the heart, 2 in the stomach, and 1 that missed. The shuriken ended up with 1 in the neck, 1 in the forehead, 1 in the arm, 1 in the leg, and 1 that missed. From 30 yards out, 3 kunai went to the stomach, while 1 found a lung and 1 missed. With the shuriken, 1 found the neck, 1 hit the forehead, 1 hit the heart, and 2 missed. Choji, that translates to a 42, and so it went on. Hinata ended up with a 86. Kiba found himself with a 72. Shikamaru managed a 59, which was expected, as the Nara didn't have all that good an aim. Finally, Sasuke came up, and managed a 97, only missing a shuriken from 30 feet out. Beat that, Dobi. Sasuke taunted as Naruto stepped up. Without so much as taking a glance, 2 kunai hit the neck and 3 to the head, 1 in each eye and 1 to the forehead. 1 shuriken to both lungs, 1 to the heart, 1 in the neck, and 1 forehead finished up the 20-footers. Naruto then nailed all 5 kunai in the head. With the shuriken, he decided to show off. Flicking one to the neck, he coated it with wind chakra that decapitated the dummy. A flaming shuriken struck the man's left lung, while one covered in lightning hit the right lung. A shuriken that found the man's heart instantly caused the straw to cave in, signaling that it was covered with earth chakra. And a kunai with a water cloak struck the body's stomach. The area became wet as the kunai punctured the dummy. Iruka stood speechless, as did all the other teachers and students. Even Sasuke's mind shut down for a moment at the display. As if it were a hidden signal, all the minds rebooted at once. Despite this, however, Iruka is the first to regain his SPPECH abilities. Naruto. These scores, they haven't been seen since the 4th Hokage took this test. Amazing. You scored a 200, because using elemental chakra while throwing is an automatic extra 20 points. Itachi Uchiha scored a 140, Kakashi Hitaki scored a 140, but this ties with the highest score set by the Yondaime Hokage. He stitchered out. Naruto nodded lazily, as if he did stuff like that every day, which, knowing him, he probably did. After a few minutes of sitting there, Ino completed the portion of the test with a 64, something she gloated non-stop to Sakura, who only got a 57, one of the worst grades. They went farther over to the grounds they reserved for taijutsu sparring. Iruka turned to his class once more. Okay, so the third part is the taijutsu exam. In this part, 2 competitors will enter the ring. They will spar using nothing but taijutsu. The one to be knocked out of the ring or forced to surrender will lose 10 points, while the one who wins gets an extra 10 points. It is suggested that you use the academy-styled taijutsu, but other forms are okay as well. First off, Shino Aburame and Choji Akamichi. The 2 boys headed into the ring. After about 3 minutes of sparring, Choji eventually won. Shino was faster by far, but Choji managed to get one powerful blow that knocked the Aburame out of the ring. Choji settled with a 89, while Shino received a 78. After some more battles, Sakura and Hinata took to the ring. The match was over as soon as it started. Sakura threw a sloppy punch at Hinata, who sidestepped and shoved her into Hinata's waiting foot. Sakura tripped and fell out of the ring. Iruka shook his head. Hinata, that's a perfect 110, while Sakura gets a 43 for effort and throwing a punch. Iruka said, reading the results Mizuki gave him. Honestly, he believed that Sakura deserved a 0, but since Mizuki was proctoring this part of the exam, he couldn't argue. Kiba thrashed some civilian kid pretty easily, earning him a 106 for both speed and strength. Shikamaru did surprisingly well, earning a win against some other kid and receiving a 96. Finally, Naruto and Sasuke took to the ring. Kick the Baka's butt, Sasuke-kun. Sakura cheered as the Uchiha settled into the Uchiha clan's stance. Go, Naruto-kun. Ino and, though much quieter, Hinata, said as Naruto settled into the Emperor's Guard stance. It consisted of Naruto holding his right hand out in a claw-like fashion, with the left hand off to its side and behind it. His right foot was also put in front of the left foot in the same fashion as his hands. Begin, Mizuki said as he leapt out of the 10-foot ring. The 2 stood for a long time, not moving a single muscle. They wait for the other to make a move. Finally, Sasuke cannot stand the wait and decides to taunt Naruto in the hopes of making him move. What's the matter, Dobi? Are you scared of facing me? He asked. Naruto shook his head. Nope, but you are too weak to even go full out on, so I'm just going to use my weakest style. That should be enough for you, he stated. Sasuke growled and charged Naruto. He began with a right fist to the face. Naruto deflects the punch away and blocks the spinning kick from the right foot with his forearm. Sasuke then forces himself to jump over Naruto, trying to kick him on the way. Naruto blocks the attack with his forearm and pushes Sasuke away. Sasuke lands rather neatly and comes at him again, with a knee to the gut. Naruto blocks with his right hand. Sasuke launches a left hook to the face of Naruto, who grabbed it and tossed Sasuke over his shoulder. The boy lands about a foot in front of the line. Before Naruto appeared and launched a really hard punch, it was with inhumane strength, something that Sasuke noted as he landed. That's not fair. He cheated. That last punch was inhumanly strong, which meant that he used chakra to enhance it. He stated. Naruto intervened, seeing as how he was the one in question. No, that wasn't chakra, but rather your energy plus mine. The Emperor's Guard style is a defensive-styled taijutsu stance where the user absorbs the energy from the opponent's blows and redirects at them. That's why I stayed on the defensive most of the time. Furthermore, even if I did use chakra, it would have counted as taijutsu anyway because I did not use a ninjutsu or genjutsu. Sasuke growled. "Teach me that style, Dobi," he demanded. "Why? I thought that the Uchihas were better than everything, so why would you need to learn a style underneath your Uchiha stance?" he questioned. To everyone's shock, the reasoning actually went through to Sasuke, who paused. "You know what, Dobi? You're right," he stated before walking away. Naruto received a 110, while Sasuke received a 90. The class then proceeded to move away from the training ground and over to the forest. Next up is the genjutsu portion. You must dispel a genjutsu we place on you as fast as you can. Under 10 seconds is a perfect 100, under 20 is a 90, and so on and so forth. Shino received a 100 after dispelling the illusion 3 seconds in. Choji had a harder time, but still hit a 100 after 7 seconds. Sakura received a 100 only because thanks to her childish reserves, her chakra control was good and that made it easy to dispel a genjutsu. Hinata received a 100 thanks to the Hyuga's ability to see through genjutsu and dispel it easily. Kiba got a 90 after taking about 11 seconds to dispel it, while Shikamaru got a 100 after a 5-second gap. Finally, Sasuke, Naruto and Ino all received a 100, with Naruto being able to dispel the genjutsu in a second, Sasuke in 3 seconds, and Ino in 8 seconds. Finally, they went back into their academy classroom for the final portion of the exam. Okay guys, this last part is the ninjutsu part. You have to perform the henge, transformation, kawamiri, substitution, and bunshin no jutsu, clone technique, to pass. For the bunshin, you have to produce at least 2 clones. If you want, you can perform a jutsu from outside of the academy for extra credit. Iruka explained. Shino, you're first. The Aburame walked in and out several moments later with the headband. Choji, Sakura, surprisingly, Hinata, Kiba, Shikamaru, and Sasuke did the same. Finally came Naruto's turn. Alright Naruto, first is, Iruka began. However, Mizuki appeared eager to start, as he launched a handful of shuriken at Naruto before Iruka could even start. He substituted with a chair off to the side of the room. He quickly then turned into a carbon copy of the 4th Hokage, which he already is, except with whiskers, using the henge, before turning back into himself. He then created 4 perfect clones, and then used the shadow clone jutsu to fill the room with clones of himself. As Iruka hit one, it dispelled, showing him that it was indeed a different jutsu from the one that the academy teaches. Congratulations Naruto, you pass with flying colors. He congratulated as Naruto grabbed a hide band and tied it to his forehead. He gave a smile at Iruka and left the room. Outside, he met Kiba, Shino, Hinata, Shikamaru and Choji. Hey look, it's Naruto, Kiba said as they turned to see their classmate and now comrade. Was there any doubt that I was going to fail? Naruto asked while smirking. Everyone else smiled back. Alright guys, we're celebrating. Let's get something to eat, Naruto stated. Eventually, after an argument between Choji and Naruto, the 6 decided to head to Ichiraku Ramen, Naruto's favorite place. He recalled the place when it was just a measly stand could only serve about 5 people at once. However, after Naruto gained his Rinnegan, word got out that the stand was his favorite spot to eat. The business at Ichiraku picked up tremendously afterwards, and 7 years later, it was one of the premier restaurants in Konoha. It was about the size of a small apartment building, with several floors and several waiters and cooks. The first floor was breakfast food, the second served lunch, and the third served dinner. Each floor had about 20 tables, with one table with 1 chair, one with 2, and so on and so forth. Naruto and his friends entered the restaurant and headed up to the 2nd floor, where a waiter met them. We'd like a table for 6. Naruto said as the waiter took down their names. He directed Naruto and the rest of the crew to a table near a huge window. It gave off a nice view of the western district of Konoha. Naruto slid into the corner with Hinata next to him and Kiba next to her. Shino sat across from him, with Shikamaru in the middle and Choji at the end. The waiter came up to them once more. "What are your orders?" "I'll have 3 large bowls of pork ramen to start, please." Naruto said. "I'll have 3 large bowls of miso ramen." Choji stated. "I'll have some Asian sesame noodles with ginger-scented chicken." Shino stated. "I'd like to order a medium bowl of shrimp ramen," Kiba said. "Troublesome. Can I have some tuna maki?" Shikamaru asked. Anyo. "I'll have a small bowl of vegetable ramen, please." Hinata stammered out. The waiter nodded and left to hand the order off to Tucci, the head cook of the lunch menu. "So guys, how'd your ninjutsu test go?" Naruto asked, kickstarting a conversation. "Well, I did all 3 academy jutsu and then used my bugs to make a bug clone." Shino stated. "I did the jutsu and then used my partial expansion." Choji continued. "I did all 3 jutsu but didn't get any extra credit." Hinata said without stuttering, much to everyone's shock. "Yan. All 3 jutsu and then shadow possession." Shikamaru stated. "I did all 3 and then used the headhunter jutsu on Mizuki." Kiba said. Naruto and Shikamaru snickered. So that was why he was covered in dirt. They managed to say while all the others just looked at them. After a few seconds or so, they managed to calm themselves. "Oh, I did all 3 and then used the shadow clone jutsu," Naruto stated after realizing that he never told them what he did. At that point, the food had arrived. As they ate, they made pointless talk about what was going on in their life, how they were doing in their training, and even managed to make a day that Naruto would take them somewhere special. As they ate and talked, Naruto gave off a true smile, which everyone else noted and did as well. They understood that they would always have one another's back, no matter what. They were friends, and that's what they did. Finally, after all else finished, a ramen eating contest took place between Choji and Naruto. Naruto managed to pull away with the win, triumphing over Choji's 13 bowls with his 15. Afterwards they left but still stayed together. "Race you to the hill," Kiba said as he ran off. Everyone else smirked and ran off after him. It was a tradition that after anything they all did together, they would make it to a hill and lay there, watching the clouds and the sunset. Naruto made it first, with Kiba coming in second even with his head start. Shikamaru and Shino arrived at the same time, with Hinata following them. Choji, naturally, was the last to arrive. The 6 plopped down under the lone tree that stood on the hill, laying in a circle with not a care in the world. A few words were exchanged, but one didn't need to hear the conversation to understand that they were close. Finally, after a few hours of that, the sun set and it became nighttime. They all stood. "Oh, guys, we have to meet at the academy at 8:30 tomorrow to find out our teams," Naruto said, remembering something Iruka had told him as he was leaving. The others nodded and were about to leave, but they spotted a figure run away, with a bundle in his arms. A few seconds later, the Hokage's voice rang out over the village. "All available ninja, the forbidden scroll of sealing has been stolen. Spread out and find it before it gets away." The voice boomed. The 6 looked at each other before looking at the way the stranger had left. "You don't think?" Shikamaru said with widened eyes. "It doesn't matter, it's a chance we'll have to take. Let's go guys," Naruto said as he leapt off after the culprit. The other 5 quickly followed him. "Hinata, can you see him?" Naruto called out as they leapt through the thick foliage that was the forest that lies on the outside of Konoha. A strange feeling of thrill was in all their bodies. They were in a virtual state of lockdown, and they were outside the village for the first time in their lives. It was only their first day on their job, and yet they were here chasing after someone who might have stolen the scroll. "Hi, Naruto. He's still running away from us, but we're catching up to him. If we continue like this, we should catch him in under 5 minutes," Hinata stated. Her stutter had dissolved completely in the time of emergency. "Kiba, do you have any scent that might identify the thief?" Naruto asked to the person traveling next to him. Kiba sniffed the air. "He has a distinct smell of snakes, but he also smells like Mizuki-sensei," he exclaimed. Everyone's eyes widened at the revelation. "That can't be," Choji said. "A few bugs have caught up to him, and they identify the chakra as belonging to Mizuki-sensei as well." Shino informed them. "But why would he?" Hinata murmured. "Of course," Naruto exclaimed, feeling stupid. "He's stolen the scroll for Orochimaru." Everyone gasped, Shino and Shikamaru more so because they understood why. "How?" Kiba asked. "How did you come to this conclusion?" Remember back a few months ago, when Mizuki-sensei was absent for a week? Iruka-sensei told us that he was on a mission to the land of rice. According to rumors, the new village over there, called Oto, was created and ruled by Orochimaru. Naruto chattered off quickly. Plus, my bugs that are working on draining his chakra are picking up on a much fouler chakra as well, coming from his neck. Shino stated. Kiba's eyes narrowed. Now that you mention it, I remember that there was a strange marking on his neck as well. It was black and kinda looked like what the Sharingan should have when it fully matures. He said. Shikamaru shook his head. So he went to the land of rice completely unharmed, and came back with a marking on his neck and smelling of snakes. The marking sounds like the cursed seal that we learned about. It was, after all, created by Orochimaru. So if he went to Oto, it would have been the perfect chance to get the seal from him. And if he came back smelling like snakes, it suggests that, he said. He's been dealing with Orochimaru. Naruto said. And that explains why he stole the scroll. Care to elaborate? Choji asked, who now understood who Mizuki was really working for, but not why the scroll has anything to do with it. Think about it. Orochimaru doesn't just give away the markings for free. He expects something in return. Mizuki must be giving him the scroll. Shikamaru stated. Why the scroll, though? Hinata asked. The scroll is full of powerful jutsu and seals that can make the wielder significantly more powerful. Orochimaru's life ambition is to avoid death and try to learn every jutsu that exists. He's probably banking that there's a way to get immortal in the scroll, and even if there isn't, then he gets jutsu out of it and Konoha loses them. It's a win-win situation for him, unless we can get the scroll back. Naruto stated. Shino nodded. But I can't shake the feeling that there is an underlying ambition in this, he said. There can be a number of reasons. He can be searching for a way to find immortality, to unseal the Kyuubi, or maybe he's planning to use some jutsu he finds in an attack against Konoha. However, we don't have any proof right now. All we can go on is that Mizuki-sensei is stealing the scroll, most likely for Orochimaru. Naruto replied. All of his friends nodded, not freaking out about the Kyuubi situation because they knew that Naruto held him in. They even met him once, and they had to say that he was quite friendly. Finally, they caught up to the culprit. So, it's you kids, huh? He said with a chuckle. Give it up, Mizuki. You can't win. Hand over the scroll and surrender peacefully, and you might live through this ordeal. Naruto stated. To confirm their suspicion, Mizuki stepped out into the light, with the scroll in his arms. You six don't stand a snowball's chance in hell against me. Mizuki sneered as he put the scroll down. He quickly made hand signs as well. Earth style. Mud dragon bullet, he proclaimed as a dragon head rose from the ground next to him and launched several mud balls at them. They quickly scattered away from the attack. Partial expansion jutsu, Choji said as his hands increased to the size of Naruto's body. He swung at Mizuki, who jumped to launch himself out of the way. Unfortunately, the group of six had planned it out, so they were glad that he did so. A group of bugs swarmed the scroll and flew back to Shino, who grabbed hold of it. Tunneling Fang, Kiba said as he flew through the air at Mizuki. Without any way to dodge and forgetting about the substitution jutsu, Mizuki was hit by Kiba, though he had crossed his arms in front of him to block the attack. The impact and energy behind the attack blew Mizuki at Choji, who grabbed him. Shino's bugs swarmed him, eating him of all his chakra. As they flew off, Naruto approached him, ready to put his part into play, when suddenly Choji yelped and dropped him. Mizuki stood up, with purple chakra flowing visibly from him. The cursed seal was spreading over his body. Ha 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 ha. Take this. Earth style. Multi-mud dragon bullet. He said as two dragons of earth shot mud bullets everywhere. Shinra Tensai. Naruto stated as they were all repelled from him and his friends. Mizuki was also thrown through the air, straight to Hinata. 8 trigrams. 2 palms, she said as she closed 2 tenketsu, stopping the chakra flow. 4 palms, she said, closing the next 4. 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, 8 trigrams, 64 palms, she called out as her hands moved in a blur. With each strike, she closed off 1 tenketsu after another until finally, with a palm to the heart, she sent him flying back to Shikamaru, who finished his hand seals. Shadow possession jutsu, he said as Mizuki landed on his feet. As Shikamaru's shadow connected with Mizuki's, he was kept in place. Naruto used the opportunity to go for the jutsu that he was going for earlier. Soul removal, he stated while holding his hand on Mizuki's head. As he pulled upward, a spirit was removed from Mizuki's body. With a silent scream, Mizuki slumped over, dead. Naruto nodded as the Anbu appeared. Naruto Uzumaki, Shino Aburame, Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, Choji Akamichi, and Shikamaru Nara, the Hokage wishes for your presence. Mizuki's body will be taken to the research division for analysis. The Anbu commander said as two others picked up the body and shushined away. The commander and the other Anbu member escorted the 6 genin back into the village. Sarutobi rubbed his head as he listened to Naruto and his friends tell their tale. He was definitely too old to be dealing with this shit. So let me get this straight. You guys celebrated graduating by going to Ichiraku and then hanging out on the hill, where you noticed a figure running off with a bundle. Hearing my command, you 6 went after him and figured out that Mizuki was betraying the village and working for Orochimaru. You 6 then used teamwork to incapacitate and ultimately kill Mizuki and retrieve the scroll. He recapped as the 6 nodded silently. He sighed. This has become an A- ranked mission for all of you. You each will receive 50,000 ryo for your efforts. Come back tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon to pick up the money. He stated. Hi, the 6 replied. By the way, your parents were alerted to your actions and… Sarutobi stated as his door slammed open to reveal Sume. Following her, Shibi, Shuza, Shikaku and Hiyashi all strode over to their children. I heard what you did, Kiba. Good job using the passing fang. Sume said as Kiba blushed under his mom's praise. Nice work, Shibi said to Shino, who nodded. Good job, son. We'll celebrate by going out to the barbecue restaurant tomorrow. Shuza said to Choji while providing him with another bag of chips. Good work, Shikamaru. Shikaku said to Shikamaru, who mumbled, troublesome, under his breath. Hinata stared at Hiyashi, who stared right back. To her joy, he gave her a nod, signaling a job well done. Overwhelmed with joy, she jumped onto Hiyashi in a flying hug. Though he doesn't react, Naruto saw that he was trying his damn best not to smile. You're all dismissed, Sarutobi said as the 11 disappeared. He sighed and turned to the last paper on his desk. Looks like I'll have to change the team arrangements, Sarutobi stated as he erased a few names and moved them around. Naruto sat up in his bed once more. A glance at his clock revealed it to only be 6:30 in the morning. He summoned Akui once more to make him breakfast, and summoned back all of his clone commanders once more. He took a look at the 6 clones before him. Along with Hyasuke, Anju, Jake, Shika, and Lisa, a 6th clone, a girl, stood besides them. At the height of 5 feet, Kogari was a stunning beauty, a perfectly heart-shaped face, nice legs, DD-cupped S, and a nice, plump ass. In her left pouch, Naruto saw several throwing knives, her weapon of assassination sticking out. On her right hip, a small dagger lay concealed underneath her arm. She wore a blue, long-sleeved shirt with the word, in between her cleavage, and, shockingly, black skinny jeans that showed off her ass. Naruto also knew that she had several smoke bombs, as well as a hidden poisoned blade on her. Hyasuke, meet on the Hokage monument to practice the strong fist style, and learn how to effectively counter the gentle fist, in the case that I fight a Hyuga. Hyasuke nodded and disappeared in a small tornado. Anju, Jake, Forest of Death, S-Class Sector. The 2 clone commanders glanced at each other. It was, after all, the first time that they would be in that portion of the forest. They then nodded, albeit a little hesitantly, and disappeared in twin flashes of lightning. Shika, the tactics division is on standby for now. Shika nodded and puffed into smoke, retreating back into Naruto's mind. Lisa, torture and interrogation will practice on Korujodi, a male I found trying to break into my apartment. Lisa nodded and sunk into the ground, having searched Naruto's memories to know where to find him. Kogari, you have a special assassination today. Your targets are? Naruto said before handing over the 2 pictures. If you want to go flashy, do so. Kogari gave a silent nod before sinking into the shadows. After showering and eating, Naruto found out that he still had a whole hour and a half before the Academy's team selection actually began. Shadow Realm? Kyuubi asked with glee. Shadow Realm, Naruto replied while stepping into a shadow portal. Naruto landed on his feet feeling the familiar black sand of the world. He looked around to see where he had landed, to find that he was in front of his castle. I should pump up the security, Naruto said. You really should, Kyuubi stated, walking up beside him in human form. Naruto had learned long ago that the Shadow Realm only admitted one being per body. As the Kyuubi was trapped within Naruto with the strongest seal known to man, neither had imagined that the Shadow Realm's creator, Shi no Kage, Shadow of Death, would actually have the power to separate them upon entrance to the Realm of Shadows. Kyuubi had to make a body every time they entered the realm, which is why he was excited because in his mind, he could barely stretch his legs, much less destroy or kill something every once in a while. In the Shadow Realm, it would be impossible not to destroy or kill something. True to Naruto's thoughts, a 30-foot cyclops with a 10-foot-long spiked club appeared from the forest off to the south. Behind him, several thousand wolves followed him at his heels. They were midnight black, with glowing red eyes and slobbering mouths hanging open, ready to devour their prey. A 30-foot-tall cyclops and 10,000 bestial wolves. I'd say that you'd need my help, Kakashi of the Sharingan, the Yellow Flash, and the Sannin to defeat them all. Kyuubi listed. Naruto shrugged. Nah, I know who's going to help. And with that, Shino, Kiba, Hinata, Choji and Shikamaru were all deposited on the floor. What the fuck? Shino screamed in a demonic voice. Naruto could see he wasn't much of a morning person. Seriously, what the hell is wrong with you? Shikamaru trailed off, having noticed the beasts coming at them. All the others followed his gaze and saw the thousands upon thousands of wolves charging at them, and the giant cyclops. Yeah, remember when I said I'd show you a special place? This is the Shadow Realm, where evil monsters exist solely to kill you. Now, I'd suggest you get moving. You're all at level 1 in the Shadow Realm, and to advance you need to kill these demons. A wolf is worth 50 experience points. A 30-foot cyclops is about 200 points. Each experience point makes you a little bit stronger, faster, smarter, better. A whole new level can double your strength, really. Everyone's eyes widened. How high are you? Kiba asked. Oh, level 72. Naruto said. And with that being said, his whole army appeared behind him as well. Charge! Kyuubi screamed as he, the clones, Naruto and his friends all dived headlong into the battle. Kyuubi went off to slaughter some wolves that dared challenge him, while the clones crashed into the wolves as well. Electricity, fire, water, chunks of earth, swords, knives, and bodies were thrown through the air at a rapid pace. Shino and Hinata ended up separated from the rest of the gang. The other 4 charged the giant cyclops. Kyuubi swatted another wolf away from his face with one of his tails and snapped a second's neck. A third and a fourth pounced as well, but their heads slammed against each other and their skulls shattered. The bodies were thrown into the masses of wolves that ringed him. A fifth one tried to get the jump on him from behind, but it soon found itself without a head. A sixth and seventh found themselves impaled on Kyuubi's claws. Another 3 wolves ran in and actually hit the Kyuubi in the chest, making him fall over. They quickly swarmed the demon, dogpiling him in the hopes that he wouldn't get up. For a moment, the Kyuubi disappeared from view. Then, as if a dam had busted open, red chakra beamed into the sky. The wolves were blasted back, and the unluckiest of them all were obliterated by the volatile red chakra. As the wolves regrouped, they stared into the face of the true form of the Kyuubi. Sasuke whirled into the battle, slamming wolves out of the way left and right. One wolf that came at him received a blow to the head so hard that it instantly died. Another wolf charged, and found its throat slit. A third and fourth tried to do a high-low combo on him, but Sasuke easily dispatched of them. Leaf Whirlwind, he said after slipping into the strong fist stance. He leapt over the low wolf and kicked the high wolf in the neck, easily breaking it. He then redirected himself and launched a kunai near the wolf which he had jumped over. Pulling on the ninja wire he had attached to the kunai, he came back down with a flying kick to the face. Dynamic entry. The wolf's face and skull caved in as Hyasuke's foot crash impacted with it. It skidded away, back into the crowd of wolves. He ducked and kicked another wolf in the ribs, sending it skyrocketing. He then jumped as 4 other wolves pounced his previous spot. Anju drew her 2 tanto blades and impaled both of them in both sides of a wolf's head. She swung the blades around and slammed the corpse into 3 others. She withdrew the 2 and sliced one wolf in half, while stabbing one that had pounced her in the heart. She dodged under an attack and jumped as she heard Jake finish his hand signs. Demon skill. Hell flames. Jake said as a stream of flames spouted from his hands. The white flames burned over 100 wolves and created a firewall over 20 feet tall, separating about another 400 from the battle. The ones on fire instantly turned into ash. Strangely enough, the white flames then began to move on to a next target. Jake turned after hearing a roar behind him, but it was too late. A wolf was coming down, ready to tear his throat out. 3 throwing knives impaled the side of the wolf's head, pinning the dead corpse to a withered black tree. Jake sighed in relief and pointed a thumb up to Kogari, who merely nodded before slicing one wolf's throat and kicking another into 2 more. Shino and Hinata stood back to back, circled by 10 wolves who they could swear was laughing at them. They were, after all, only on level 1. The wolves probably believed that they were of no threat and could easily be taken down. They probably also smelt Hinata's fear, and though Shino didn't show it, they smelt his as well. One launched itself at Shino, who quickly drew a kunai and sliced its head off. As violet blood rained upon him, however, something strange happened. The world around Shino froze. The wolves stopped circling, Hinata stopped shaking, the clones stopped battling, and his friends stopped moving. He glanced around before realizing that he was still moving. Then, as if it were nothing but a game, several words appeared in the air. Congratulations. Upgrade to level 2. Gained 10 XP. Rewards. +5 stamina. +5 strength. +5 intelligence. +10 bloodline ability. New jutsu. Ninja art. Poison fog. Next level. LVL. 3 need 20 more XP. Shino looked on as the upgrades swirled before hitting him in the chest. Strangely enough, they sunk into his chest as opposed to knocking him over. He felt himself get energized, stronger, smarter, and also noted that his Kikachu colony grew bigger by what he estimated 10%. He also felt the knowledge of a new jutsu imprint itself in his mind. He expected it to stop, but instead it continued. Congratulations. Upgrade to level 3. Gained 20 XP. Rewards. +3 chakra. +10 health. +5 strength. +10 bloodline ability. New bloodline ability. Multiple hosts 1. Description. An Aburame who gets to this level can now have multiple bugs within him. Each new update of this ability increases the amount of types of bugs you can hold. Current amount. 3. New bugs. Wasps. New bugs. Flying spiders. Silk spiders. Description. Flying spiders are mutant spiders that were crossbred with flies. There are several types of this species, which can be unlocked with later upgrades. These spiders produce silk very quickly. The silk is infused with chakra, making it tougher than the regular ninja wire. This silk can be used to make lightweight armor, or to wrap up and subdue an enemy. Next level, LVL. 4 need 50 more XP. Current status. 30 out of 80 XP. Shino then noticed several options listed before him. Continue. Stats. Save status. Speak commands. Curious, Shino said, speak commands, only for nothing to happen. Then he realized that it was actually telling him to speak his command. Save status? Shino questioned. A floating version of him appeared in midair, looking down at him as black masses floated around him. A bar floated above the illusion. Status saved. Whenever you die in the Shadow Realm, you will appear in the real world on whatever level you are on. The illusion was then covered with the black mass, which dissolved into nothingness. Shino felt a grin on his face so wide, that it wasn't even fit for an Aburame. Stats, he said more confidently. A full body image of him appeared, as well as personal info and stats. Name: Shino Aburame. Age: 12. Height: 5 feet 4. Weight: 152 pounds. Stats: Strength: 30. Health: 40. Intelligence: 75. Stamina: 45. Chakra: 47. Bloodline ability: 60. Ninjutsu amount: 5. Taijutsu: 35. Genjutsu: 35. Tactics: 50. Luck: 40. Charisma: 30. Speed: 35. Agility. 30. Current level. Mid to high genin. Shino nodded and vowed that he would work on his taijutsu and learn more jutsu. Apparently, after reading over what could get him experience, under the list went several things, which included training. 5 strength XP per 6 hours. 3 stamina XP per 4 hours. 5 taijutsu XP per 8 hours. 1 ninjutsu per 24 hours. 5 genjutsu XP per 12 hours. 2 bloodline ability XP per 72 hours. 5 health XP per every week. Studying. 5 intelligence per 2 hours. 5 health XP per every 5 days. Doing D-ranked missions. 1 XP for category of your choosing. Doing C-ranked missions. 2 XP for category of your choosing. Doing B-ranked missions. 5 XP for category of your choosing. Doing A-ranked missions. 10 XP for category of your choosing. Doing S-ranked missions. 20 XP for category of your choosing. Various other things also gave him XP, but Shino didn't really focus on them. Also, there was a note that told him that unforeseen situations may give him the opportunity to gain additional XP. Continue, Shino finally said. He nailed another wolf in the head with the kunai, sending him to level 4 and grabbed hold of a pouncing wolf by its neck before snapping it. 2 more attacked him, but he smashed their heads together and impaled them on a tree branch, boosting him up to level 5. He waited for more to come, but they never did. Hinata struck one wolf in the heart and twirled as another jumped by. She pawned a second in the heart as well, then hit a third in the head and a fourth in the heart as well. She then struck several arteries and veins on the final wolf's neck, effectively ending the wolf's life. Kiba, Shikamaru, Choji and Naruto ran up to meet the Cyclops, who bellowed. "You really think that you 4 puny humans will actually be able to hurt me, much less kill me?" Bah! He chuckled before swiping at them with his club. Each ninja jumped up and over the attack, before landing in various spots. Expansion Jutsu, Choji said as he easily turned into a 30-foot giant himself. He raised a humongous fist and smashed the Cyclops in the head. Gwa! It screamed as it lost its balance. Ninja art. Shadow stitching jutsu. Shikamaru said from underneath a tree. He grinned as he sat in the shadow realm and watched his shadow go to work. As a Nara who used shadow jutsu, being in a world where shadows existed everywhere made him exponentially more powerful than anyone else. His shadow weaved in and out of the shadows of random objects, trees, walls, wolves and clones, until they reached the Cyclops. Hundreds, maybe even thousands of shadow needles suddenly branched from the main shadow and impaled the beast all at once. It gave a mighty roar, its voice full of pain and agony, as its body dripped golden blood. It smacked Choji down, knocking the boy over. He then tried to bash Choji's head in with the club, but 2 identical drills to the eye stopped him. Tunneling Fang. Kiba screamed as he and Akamaru turned. Kiba drilled into the scene and hit the mighty warrior in its lone eye. The Cyclops bellowed once more, both in pain and frustration. It had been punched in the face with what felt like a 2-ton truck moving over 100 miles an hour, impaled repeatedly through the stomach and torso, and had its eye drilled at. How could he, a mighty Cyclops warrior, be injured by such weaklings? The mere thought of being defeated by this group of meager humans angered him to a whole different level. Shikamaru, Kiba and Choji watched in horror as the Cyclops went on a rampage, smashing things left and right and creating earthquakes with his forceful feet. The boys were all lucky to have saved their data, as Choji was hit upside the head with the club. Kiba was smacked and sent sailing through the air before landing in a river of poisonous liquid that resided nearby. The tree Shikamaru had been sitting under fell over and crushed him. All 3 boys dissolved into a white pile of ash before it blew away into the storm in the sky. The Cyclops finally was able to see again and looked down to see Naruto standing fearlessly before him. Ahahahaha. The deranged being roared with laughter befitting of a mad scientist. Naruto quirked an eyebrow. I came for a battle, not to watch some ugly shit to laugh all day. Naruto stated with a sweat drop. In response, 3 trees smashed into his previous location. Unfortunately for the Cyclops, Naruto had jumped back and away from the impact zone. Demon skill. Kagutsuchi's revenge. Naruto screamed as a fireball of white, black and blue fire flew at the beast. This technique was granted to him, just as all other demon skills, thanks to Kyuubi. The myth of Kagutsuchi, the fire god, was that his birth caused the death of his mother, Izanami. Depressed over her death, Kagutsuchi's father, Izanagi, beheaded Kagutsuchi and cut the remaining body into 8 pieces. The jutsu was aptly named Kagutsuchi's Revenge, because when the Nibi no Nekomata had fought against Izanagi some 3,000 years ago, she used this jutsu and managed to actually cause a wound. Hence, she named it Kagutsuchi's Revenge in honor of the god of fire. The fireball seemed to wail as it flew through the air, and with the explosion equivalent to 3 nuclear bombs, the jutsu detonated as it made contact with the great beast. A giant tower of fire reached into sky, splitting the storm clouds and revealing a blue moon. In the center of the tower, the Cyclops roared in unfathomable pain as some of the hottest flames of hell burnt him to a crisp. Kagutsuchi's Revenge, when fully powered, could burn longer than Amaterasu and was about 4,000 degrees hotter. The hell flames were a little under Amaterasu, as the goddess had only bestowed that gift upon the Uchiha, and try as they might, no one else could replicate it. Naruto's version of Kagutsuchi's Revenge was slightly above Amaterasu. It could burn for 5 days, but was 300 degrees hotter. Shino and Hinata stopped panting and what they were doing, as did Kyuubi and all the remaining wolves, to witness the violent explosion and the resulting flame tower. All of them, even the wolves and Kyuubi, gaped like a fish out of water as it reached upwards and into the heavens, possibly above. It stayed that way for a minute before it died down, revealing a much burnt Cyclops laying in the center of a 15-foot wide and 40-foot deep crater. With very low growls, the remaining wolves, only about 300 in number massively thanks to the clone army Naruto summoned, fled from the battle, accepting defeat but not liking it. As Shino sent his new wasp colony and a few flying spiders to kill off some more and possibly bring 1 or 2 back for studying, he realized that they would most likely be back sooner than later. And he would gladly go through it all again if it meant that he would get as strong as he did. Kiba, Shikamaru and Choji were only up to level 7 for killing several wolves and injuring the Cyclops. Shino and Hinata were up to level 10 already with all the killing that they had done. As the remaining clones dispelled, Kyuubi, Shino and Hinata trekked up to where Naruto was standing, at the very edge of the crater. They followed his line of sight to the abomination that was the Cyclops. It was still breathing, though unable to move and do anything more than to breathe and talk. How? It managed to gasp out. Naruto smirked. Size doesn't mean power, Naruto said. He was about to finish him, but Kyuubi stopped him. What are you doing? Naruto questioned. Kyuubi grinned and turned back into his full fox form. I haven't had a good meal in ages. Kyuubi trailed off. Naruto and the others turned away as the screams of the Cyclops and the laughter of the Kitsune sounded for a second before the screams died out. They turned back to see the Kyuubi looking at them with a grin. Crispy, Kyuubi said. With that, Naruto forcibly removed everyone from the dimension. They tumbled out to land upon a just recently recovering Choji, Shikamaru and Kiba. All 6 mumbled and groaned as they detached their limbs from the others. At last, after a minute or so, they regrouped. What was that? Kiba asked. Like I said, it was the Shadow Realm. The castle was my fort. Those which we just battled against are some of my enemies. I train in there to increase in strength rapidly. Even you all have to admit that you feel stronger, faster, smarter, and just downright better just from killing those few wolves and fighting the Cyclops. That's because the Shadow Realm treats all its inhabitants like a video game character. You gain battle experience for killing an enemy. You gain enough, and it rewards you with strength, speed, intelligence, luck, and so on and so forth. The Shadow Realm is divided into several stages: home base, forest, mountains, desert, ocean, Cloud 9, the 9 circles of hell, and the factory. Home base was a large area of land, 1900 acres of land, all for my intents and purposes. The forest, mountains, desert, and ocean comprised of the earth that separates my home base from their home base. After crossing the ocean, I enter a portal that sends me into a challenge, the 9 circles of hell, where I face 9 demons of varying levels and then the tailed beast, such as the Ichibi at level 10, the Nibi at level 20, and so on and so forth. After you defeat the Kyuubi, you can make it to Cloud 9, where it's the same thing except with angels and gods. If you can make it past that, then you face off against the greatest monsters the factory, the enemy's base, can create. If you can take over their base, then you can win the game and it restarts exponentially harder. The only reason I'm at level 72 is because I took a shitload of my inventions, a ton of my clones, a whole army of clones of the 4th Hokage into battle, a crapload of summons, and I abused my Rinnegan and made it all the way through. After that, Cloud 9 and the 9 circles of hell were added. Heck, after that whole ordeal, I was out for nearly a month in Shadow Realm terms, which was basically that week I was absent. Naruto explained. Everyone's jaws dropped. Was this kid fucking serious? Shino was the first to break out of his stupor. Well, next time, call me and I'll help you. Hell, we may even advance some. The black-haired Aburame said, shocking all at the fact that he spoke as long as he did, was as excited as he was using such language, and was willing to head back in. Naruto chuckled. Shino, you must be seriously fucked up. Shino shook his head vigorously. No, I'm not fucked up. But I'm high on a power rush. Can't you feel it? How strong you've gotten. My taijutsu is almost double what it used to be. I picked up a new ninjutsu, I've gotten smarter, faster, healthier, more energetic, my hive has gotten larger, I have more chakra, and I have 2 new hives of insects. And that was barely an hour in the real world. He said. Now that he mentioned it, everyone else started to realize it as well. Hey, yay, Kiba agreed. I got smarter, faster, stronger, healthier, luckier, and learned a new jutsu as well. My chakra has gone up. My sense of smell has increased even further, and I can communicate with wolves now, since for all intents and purposes they're just large dogs. Plus I can fight with 2 dogs now. Shikamaru nodded. Apparently I got faster, stronger, healthier, luckier, and more charismatic. My shadow can extend longer. I have better chakra control, and I know a new shadow jutsu. Hinata poked her fingers together. I got faster, healthier, stronger, smarter, more charismatic, my Byakugan can see further, and I can also see some new tenketsu, plus, I received a new jutsu that will be perfect for fighting another Hyuga. She said. Naruto could already see that the charisma boost was taking place, because she didn't stutter or blush when looking at Naruto, though she couldn't maintain eye contact. Choji nodded as well. I got faster, healthier, smarter, more chakra, better chakra control, a new earth jutsu, and a new Akamichi jutsu. Naruto nodded. If you all were to help me conquer the Shadow Realm, we'd all get so much stronger that we'd leave someone like Sasuke Teme in the dust. All the others nodded and looked at a nearby clock to see that it was 8:29. Guys? Kiba prompted. Naruto nodded. It's covered. A portal opened on the wall, and Naruto stepped in. Shrugging, Shikamaru went in, followed by Kiba, Hinata, Shino and Choji. Iruka sighed as he looked at the class for the very last time. They had their share of bad times, but he could confidently say that this class was his favorite. Though I could go without Naruto being late all the time. Heck, now 6 of them are late. Iruka mused as the class talked amongst one another. To his surprise and everyone else's shock, a gateway opened on the way, followed by Naruto stepping out. Behind him, Shikamaru, Kiba, Hinata, Shino and Choji all fell out as well. The last 5 shuddered and groaned at the apparently unpleasant sensation, while Naruto looked at them with a smirk. Iruka made to ask him, but then decided against it. Every ninja had their secrets, after all. He watched and waited as the 6 retreated up to the final 2 desks in the room. Shino, Naruto and Hinata sat in one table, while Kiba, Choji and Shikamaru sat at the table next to them. Teach me how to do that, Dobi. Sasuke demanded once again. Impossible, Sasuke. Only those with a shadow alignment can do it. Shikamaru, Shino, Choji, Kiba, Hinata and I all have it, while you don't. In fact, the only other one who could hope to do it is Iruka-sensei, actually. Would you like to learn it? Naruto stated, and then asked of his teacher, who nodded. It looks way cooler than a regular shunshin. He commented. Naruto nodded. It moves way faster as well. Sasuke growled, which in turn made Naruto chuckle. Alright class, listen up. This will be our last time as a class together. I'm going to tell you that the path to being a ninja is not going to be easy, and that you might even die in your line of duty. This caused several people to blanch. Iruka only grinned. But I believe that you all will rise to be the greatest group of ninjas that this world has ever seen. All of the genin nodded with a small smile, except for Sasuke. The scarred Chunin then proceeded to unravel a scroll. Alright, Team 1 is, and so it went on, until at last, Naruto heard his name. Team 7 consists of Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Hyuga and Shino Aburame. Your Jonin sensei is Kakashi Hatake. At that, Naruto nodded and looked at the two sitting next to him with a smile before raising an eyebrow. Meanwhile, Shino gasped. Our sensei is the Kakashi Hatake? He asked. Iruka nodded while Sasuke scoffed. What's so special about this no-name? He asked. Naruto leveled a glare at him. Kakashi Hatake, son of the White Fang of Konoha, and world-renowned Leaf Ninja. Also known as Copy Ninja Kakashi or Kakashi of the Sharingan, Kakashi graduated the academy at the age of 5 and was Chunin by 6. At 13, he was already a Jonin. In the 4th grade Shinobi War, he gained the Sharingan from his friend, Obito Uchiha, and after that, became known for mastery of over 1,000 jutsu. He was the student of the Yondaime Hokage, and was the head of the Anbu for several years. He is an A-class ninja worth 50 million ryo by Kumo and Iwa. Naruto stated. Sasuke growled, so why do they get this Kakashi guy and not me? I'm an Uchiha, he has the Sharingan, and he can teach me. Why do the no-named idiots get him? Iruka glared at him as well. Sasuke, just because you are an Uchiha does not make you better than everyone else. These three are not no-named idiots. Shino and Hinata are heirs to the Aburame and Hyuga clans, and Naruto is one of the most talented kids I've ever seen. As for why they get him, from what I understand, you haven't unlocked your Sharingan, so you don't need him yet. Hinata's Byakugan, Shino's Kikachu, Kakashi's Ninken squad, and Naruto's wolves make up a great tracking squad. Team 8 is Sasuke Uchiha, Ino Yamanaka and Sakura Haruno, led by Kurenai Yuhi. Sasuke, the Sharingan is a mainly Genjutsu Dojutsu, and Kurenai is the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha, so that is why you're on her team. As Iruka finished explaining, twin shouts of "True love conquers all," and several groans, including that of Sasuke, were heard. Iruka shook his head and continued. Team 9 is still in circulation from last year, and Team 10 is Kiba Inuzuka, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akamichi, led by Asuma Sarutobi. You are to wait here for your Jonin senseis. Meanwhile, in the Hokage's office, Sarutobi shook his head and rubbed his temples. The council was bitching over the team formations, and the Jonin sensei was standing in front of him, also questioning the decision. Shut the fuck up, Sarutobi finally snapped, causing several people to look at him and all to silence themselves. The Hokage never cursed, and when he did, it meant that he was seriously and utterly pissed. One at a time, he said. Danzo started the conversation off. Hokage-sama, please explain why the teams are this way. He asked. Team 7 consists of Shino Aburame, Hinata Hyuga and Naruto Uzumaki, with Kakashi Hatake leading them because they're to be both the tracker and ninjutsu squad. With Shino's Kikachu, Hinata's Byakugan, Kakashi's Ninken pack, and Naruto's wolf summoning, they will make a better tracker squad than, say, Kiba instead of Naruto, since wolves have a greater sense of smell. All three also absorb ninjutsu very quickly, and with Naruto's Rinnegan, he'll need a lot of ninjutsu. Shino relies on his Kikachu too much, as does Hinata with the Gentle Fist. They will need ninjutsu to back them up as well. Team 8 is Sasuke Uchiha, Ino Yamanaka and Sakura Haruno, led by Kurenai Yuhi. Kurenai is an astounding genjutsu user, and as one of the Sharingan's main abilities is to cast unbreakable genjutsu, she makes a perfect fit. Kurenai was also a fangirl in her younger days, so she can break Sakura's and Ino's current mindset and build them into competent ninja. Also, both have excellent chakra control, and as Kurenai does have some form of medical training, we can patch them into medical ninjas if given enough time. Team 10 is Kiba Inuzuka, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akamichi, led by Asuma Sarutobi. Kiba is fast, Choji is strong, Shikamaru is intelligent, and Asuma is all three. Combined, this makes a very well-rounded team. Shikamaru has techniques to restrain, while Kiba and Choji have techniques to batter and beat down an opponent. Sarutobi explained. Homura spoke his concerns. But Hiruzen, Sasuke should be on Kakashi's team with the Aburame and the Hyuga. He will need training in the Sharingan, which he hasn't activated yet. Kakashi cut in. There's no point in me training an Uchiha how to use a Sharingan when he can't use it. It's a moot point. Besides, the Rinnegan and Sharingan can go hand in hand if used properly. I'd rather teach Naruto over Sasuke anyway. Hokage-sama, I propose that the Uchiha takes the Hyuga heiress as his wife. That way, a random merchant of the civilian council began. Nope, I will not let my daughter get married to him, as the Hyugas and Uchihas were always on bad terms. Besides, if you're trying to create an ultimate dojutsu, it's been proven that the offspring of an Uchiha and a Hyuga will always take on a Sharingan or a Byakugan, never both. Hiyashi briskly cut off that suggestion. Anything else? Sarutobi asked. Do I really have to work with the Uchiha? Kurenai pleaded. Sarutobi nodded, which caused her head to hang. Council adjourned. Kurenai, Asuma, Kakashi, I suggest that you pick up your teams now. Asuma and Kurenai nodded, but Kakashi waved the suggestion off. I've still got at least 3 more hours. Sarutobi's sweat dropped, but it was wiped away as Kakashi snapped his book shut. Noticing that they were the only two in the room, Kakashi began in his Anbu commander voice. Hokage-sama, I'd like to speak to you in private. In other words, Kakashi was requesting that the security and silencing seals were activated. Sarutobi frowned, but did so anyway. What is it, Kakashi? He asked of the Jonin. Kakashi glanced around and then told the Hokage of his worries. Hokage-sama, what if the council gives Sasuke a mission to impregnate the women he wants to so he can revive his clan? Sarutobi's eyes narrowed. Let them. I know that the young Uchiha only likes strong people, so he'll go after those he deems strong enough. But they should be strong enough to hold their own against him. Kakashi nodded and disappeared. Homura and Kaharu walked briskly throughout the village, talking along the way of village concerns and matters. Lunch? Kaharu prompted as they entered Ichiraku Ramen. Homura nodded as they got into the table for two. Homura, what do you make of the team decisions? Kaharu asked. Before he could give his answer, a waiter walked up to them. What would you two like today? She asked. A medium bowl of vegetable ramen, please. Kaharu stated. A medium bowl of ginger carrot soup, please. Homura ordered. The waitress nodded and walked up to another cook, who took the order and disappeared inside the kitchen. I think that Hiruzen truly messed up the team decisions. The Uchiha deserves to be on Kakashi's team, not the demon child. Instead, he ends up with 2 useless fangirls. Homura answered Kaharu's previous question. Not quite. I hear the Yamanaka doesn't actually like the Uchiha. Kaharu said as their food arrived. Kaharu took a sip of the broth, as Homura took a spoonful of soup into his mouth. Really now? Homura asked. Kaharu nodded. She acts like a useless fangirl apparently to fool everyone so that they underestimate her. Of course, she needed someone to admire, which turned out to be the Uchiha. Homura raised an eyebrow. Well then, I guess it's only one useless fangirl. Kaharu nodded again as she took in some vegetables. But Sasuke needs to revive his clan. We should give him a special mission from the council to get several wives as soon as possible. Kaharu said. Homura nodded. They have to be strong, of course. Do you have any in mind? Kaharu nodded once more. That Yamanaka, Kurenai, the Hyuga girl, the snake whore, and a few others. Homura wrote them down and passed it on to a fellow councilman that had walked by. As they finished their meal, however, both clutched their hearts. What's happening? Kaharu asked as she felt a severe pain. She glanced at Homura to find that he had already collapsed. She, too, fell face first into her ramen. As the people screamed over the 2 elders, a brown-haired cook watched with a glint in her eyes before puffing into smoke. In the academy, Naruto grinned as he received the memory from Kogeri. Her mission to assassinate Kaharu and Homura went well, apparently. Those 2 were a thorn in Naruto's side for a long time. Guys, Kakashi won't be here for at least another 2 hours. He told his pacing teammates, who were the only other 2 in the room. Why not? Hinata asked. Naruto shrugged. It's one of his quirks. He always appears at least 3 hours late unless it is a direct order from the Hokage. If it is, then he'll be about half an hour late. Shino raised an eyebrow. And you know this, how? The bingo book does wonders. was Naruto's simple reply. 2 hours later, the door finally slid open to reveal a male with silver, gravity-defying hair. His mask covered most of his face, while his headband was slung over his left eye, leaving only his right eye visible. He carried a small orange book that he read from, and was leaning on his right foot so much that he was standing slanted, giving off the impression that he was very lackadaisical. Everyone's sweat dropped, Naruto doing so massively, at the way he presented himself. My first impression of you all is that you're slow, seeing as how I've been waiting on the roof for you for the past 3 hours. He said with an eye smile. Everyone's face faulted, with Naruto being the first to recover. Why didn't you tell us? He said angrily. Naruto, I trained you well enough to sense another ninja, didn't I? He asked in return. Anyway, meet on the roof in 5 minutes. With that, Kakashi disappeared. Naruto snorted and jumped out of the window. Shino and Hinata recovered and did the same. As soon as Kakashi leaned on the rail, Naruto, Shino and Hinata all jumped up and landed sitting next to the other. He chuckled at both their speed and how they landed, as well as how close they seemed to be to each other. Alright, since we're just meeting each other, for the most part, he said before looking at the sun-kissed blonde. Let's start introducing ourselves, name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dream, etc. Shouldn't you go first, Kakashi-sensei? Hinata asked. Kakashi sighed. Fine, my name is Kakashi Hitaki. He likes reading his smut and sleeping. He dislikes not being able to read his smut and doing anything that really requires effort besides fighting. His hobbies include reading his smut and taking care of his ninkin, and his dream, besides seeing his teammates once more, are to collect every Icha book and movie there is. Naruto finished with a snicker. Shino stared at Kakashi while Hinata turned a very deep red. Kakashi chuckled nervously. Ha ha ha, Naruto, you're up first. Kakashi said. Naruto shrugged. Naruto Uzumaki, I like ramen, getting stronger, and my friends. I dislike bullies, rapists, and Sasuke. My hobbies are cooking, training and reading, and my dream is to become the Hokage. Naruto said in one breath. Kakashi nodded. Aburame, you're up next. My name is Shino Aburame, I like bugs, my friends and training. I dislike people who kill bugs, bullies, rapists, and arrogant people. My hobbies are searching for new bugs, training, and hanging out with friends, and my dream is to become the Aburame clan head and show the world why we belong in Konoha. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. For an Aburame, you sound like quite the social one. Shino shrugged. Meh. Kakashi shook his head and looked expectantly at Hinata. My name is Hinata Hyuga. I like Naruto, my friends, and getting stronger. I dislike most of my clan, Sasuke, and fangirls. My hobbies include gardening, hanging out with friends, and reading, and my dream is to become Hyuga clan head and merge the two branches. She said. Naruto looked at her in shock. Did you say that you like me? Naruto asked. Hinata's hand clasped over her mouth and she turned red before she shrugged. Ah well, it's out there now. She said. Kakashi noticed a small shift in Naruto's posture that headed towards her. He inwardly smirked. So I have a blonde that wishes to be Hokage, a social Aburame, and a warm Hyuga on my team, odd. He stated with an eye smile. His soon-to-be students smirked at him as well. So guys, tomorrow, meet me at Training Ground 7 at 6 o'clock for your Genin test. Kakashi said. Before anyone could even question what he said, he continued by saying, don't eat, you'll just puke anyway. With that, the scarecrow disappeared, leaving 3 stunned genin. Naruto broke out of his stupor first. So I'm going to show up at 9 o'clock having eaten breakfast. Right now, I'm going to get lunch at Ichiraku. You guys coming? He asked. The two looked at each other before following him towards the restaurant. On a nearby building, Kakashi smirked. They'll make a legendary team. And with that, the copy nin went off to join his Jonin friends. Naruto stood in the Shadow Realm with Shino and Hinata, giving them the grand tour. Kiba, Shikamaru and Choji would have to get one later. Before he had started, he had created several guards outside his home base. Among them were giant praying mantises, several hundred light wolves, the counterpart to the bestial wolves, a 30-foot-long spider scorpion, several hundred flying ninjas, a few hundred dragons with the Rinnegan, a huge row of Venus flytraps, 104th Hokage clones, 100 Kakashi Hitaki clones, 100 Itachi Uchiha clones, 100 of his regular clones, and several thousands of his clones hanged into random grains of sand, trees, and just about anything else. The 30-foot-long spider was a special creation of Naruto's. It had very hard scales that he couldn't even pierce, eyes that fired lasers, a huge mouth to chomp on objects and spit either acid or nets to trap others, 2 poisonous tails, and monster strength. Oh yes, Naruto would definitely take them. The flying ninja was something Naruto just randomly thought of once. Wouldn't it be awesome for a ninja to fly around and launch jutsu everywhere, confident that there was a very small chance to get struck? Having thought that, he had the workers on the creation division make them. They were very helpful because they held an aerial advantage against ground units, and were versatile enough to fight other aerial enemies. The dragons were based off of Naruto's summoning contract with the species. As wielder of the Rinnegan, he could hold up to 10 summoning contracts, 1 for each finger. So far, he held the wolf, dog, dragon, crab, toad. Jiraiya had visited him once when he was 10. Snake. Thanks to Anko, he could summon the lesser snakes. And fox. Thanks to Kyuubi, contracts. The first 4 were granted to him with the Rinnegan. He was still searching for 3 more that he might have wanted to use. The Venus flytraps were vastly different in the sense that they were much larger and had tentacles to grapple objects with. They were large enough to actually eat an elephant, and the tentacles were spiked. They were, however, susceptible to fire-based attacks, so that was their only weakness. If you got within 10 feet of them, they would sense you and eat you. After he had set the defenses around his home, he showed them the main mansion. It was 30 stories high, with 10 floors underground as well. The bottom floor was an arena where he could train and fight against what he wanted to. The arena always fixed itself afterwards, so he could go all out without worrying about the damage he was causing. The top 30 floors were places where he stored weapons, relaxed, ate, and so on and so forth. After that, he showed them to the hospital. It was 3 floors high, and the main doctor was simply named Doc. He held all the antidotes to poisons, all the known poisons, and just about everything else. He also mixed poisons for Naruto. The hospital was used to extend the life of severely injured forces of Naruto. That way, he didn't have to keep making more forces. Third in the tour was his factory. The factory was filled with workers who basically formed an assembly line, building new types of forces for Naruto. When they arrived, they saw them finish making a 40-foot-long butterfly that others could ride on and fire from. It was like a plane with people firing out of it. Speaking of which, the workers had gotten really technically and had invented stuff from so long ago. Naruto barely understood how a helicopter or a machine gun worked, but he knew that both were effective. He had used one for transportation to a rather large battle, and with him were 2 clones and several wolves. The clones had manned the machine gun and had mowed down several enemies, while he and his wolves had leapt out of the helicopter into the awaiting chaos and provided backup for his slowly dwindling forces. Once they had visited the factory, the 3 of them had moved onto the plains of the base. In the plains were several cows, horses and the like. It reminded all of them of a farm, which it partially was. The other part of the fields that weren't occupied by the animals was used by mechanics that were repairing helicopters and other technological things. As the 3 of them sat inside of the mansion, enjoying a nice breakfast, they saw a clone barge back into the mansion. "Sir, an army of Cyclops, led by a 20-foot-long crow, is assaulting the base," he said breathlessly. Naruto frowned. "What happened to the Venus flytraps?" he asked. "They were able to take down some of the smaller Cyclops, but it is a rather large army, there are 500 of them. The crow is swooping in and creating havoc as well, ripping up the Venus flytraps and taking away wolves and clones." "And the spider scorpion? It's busy facing off with the largest Cyclops," the clone reported. Naruto set down his tea and stood up, with Shino and Hinata standing with him. "Let's go," he said, running off to the factory with his teammates in tow. When they reached the factory, they quickly explained the situation to the workers. They then took the huge butterfly and flew away. Naruto had materialized several thousand of Suna King Cobra snakes, as well as walking Venus flytraps large enough to eat 20-foot-tall Cyclops, and several hundred more wolves. Together, the large army flew to back up the rest of the forces. When they arrived, the snakes flew into action, biting at the Cyclops and injecting them with poison. However, to the great annoyance of everyone, the poisonous snakes from the forest came in and instantly started destroying Naruto's snakes. Not only that, but several large panthers also charged into the fray. Naruto cursed and did hand signs, while Shino released all of his bugs and Hinata jumped down to go help the army. Fire style. Fireball jutsu, Naruto said, launching a fireball at the crow that had taken out 3 Itachis and 4 fourth Hokages. The fireball connected with the wing of the crow, which cawed as it feebly tried to fly away but couldn't due to its burnt wing. A rather huge Venus fly trap. They got bigger based on how many enemies they ate, and the size of the enemies grabbed hold of the crow and forcibly stuffed it down into its gut, or whatever. Naruto drew a tanto he carried with him at all time and flipped off of the butterfly as it made a low swoop to let off a few wolves and clones that had hitched a ride. He charged in, ready to kill some enemies, before several thousand trees came flying at both him and a few of his clones that had followed him on his command. Cursing, he hopped back with his clones onto the departing butterfly and instantly decided that he would use ninjutsu against the great beasts instead. Demon skill. Hell flames, he said, sticking his palms out. Twin streams of white fire flew out and burnt 3 giants, who continued fighting for a short while before succumbing to the pain of the hellfire. Naruto moved on with his hand signs once more. Shadow style. Shadow spears, Naruto said. As the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, he held a shadow alignment which allowed him to use shadow jutsu such as the shadow portal and shadow spears. Several pure black spears formed in the air and speared several Cyclops, instantly killing them. Cyclops were weak against shadow attacks and demon skills. Shadow style. Imprisonment, he continued. The shadow spears and other shadows nearby 5 Cyclops warped around them, containing them in a cage. Shadow style. Shadow virus, Naruto said as small tendrils made of shadows sprouted from the cage and hit each Cyclops directly in the middle of the forehead. Seconds later, their eyes went completely black as the cage fell. The 5 Cyclops turned and started assaulting their brethren. The shadow style. Imprisonment shadow virus combo was a favorite of Naruto. He would subdue an enemy and then use his shadow virus to disturb the brain functions and take it over, bending everything and anything from animals to plants, humans to seals to his will. The shadow virus was helpful in the fact that he could force someone to speak valuable info, make them infiltrate their camp and then kill their leader, or make them fight against their comrade. The better the mind an organism or thing had, however, the more concentration and time it would take to bend the object. The shadow imprisonment was unbreakable, only stopped by Naruto's will or stoppage of chakra. Hinata, 3 Naruto clones and a 4th Hokage charged 1 Cyclops. The Cyclops swung his club at the squad of 5, dispelling 1 Naruto clone and missing the others. The 4th Hokage hopped onto the club and rode it up near the Cyclops' head before jumping at its face with dual kunais drawn. He plunged them into his eye and jumped off of the beast's nose as it swatted at him in pain, anger and indignation. The Hokage clone landed next to Hinata, who surged forward with another Naruto clone. The Cyclops swung blindly at both of them. Hinata jumped over the attack while the Naruto clone dropped down and came back up before launching himself into a nearby tree. The tree was instantly knocked over, and out of it flew a dozen crows. One flew above the Cyclops and hanged back into the clone, finishing up some hand signs. Lightning style. Sparrow shot, the clone said, using one of Naruto's original moves. Several small lightning birds, sparrows, from the looks of it and the suggestion of the name, flew quickly. They descended upon the Cyclops without mercy, bombarding him in showers of electricity just about everywhere. As he stumbled backwards with electricity arcing through his body, Hinata leapt up using a Hyuga clan technique. 8 trigrams. Double air palm, she said, thrusting her left palm and then right palm forward. A blast of air struck the Cyclops at his left lung, followed by the right lung. Gasping as the air was forcibly pushed out of him, he stumbled backwards even more and right into a conveniently placed spasm that seemingly never ended. Naruto knew how to alter his land, that was for sure. Shino grinned as he leveled up, gaining a 4th type of bugs. They were the invisible mosquitoes. With a special ability to turn invisible, the mosquitoes were able to drain the blood of an animal relatively quickly. Combine that with his Kikachu, and he became able to drain both blood and chakra simultaneously. It was a rather neat feature. He sent his new hive out for an experiment. Several hundreds of mosquitoes swarmed a rather large panther who had taken down several wolves with ease. It roared as the small bugs swarmed and landed on it, sucking the panther's blood at an alarming rate, until a mere 20 seconds after the first mosquito reached the giant cat, it fell over dead from the lack of blood. Finally, as several clones mugged a cyclops, the battle was over. All the clones cheered. The wolves howled in delight. Naruto and Shino smirked, while Hinata smiled at how well the battle went. The three ninjas sunk into the shadows just as they had came. A moment later, and the clearing was as empty as before the battle. The three rookie ninjas of Team 7 landed neatly in the shadow of a tree in Training Ground 7, silently wondering whether or not their chronically late legendary ninja had even awakened yet. Their unspoken questions went answered as he arrived a second later in a swirl of leaves. "Judging from your positions, I'd say you just arrived via a shadow portal," he stated amusingly. "How'd you know?" Shino asked their unvoiced and yet shared question. Kakashi's mask bent where the mouth should have been into a small U-shape, suggesting a smile. "I trained Naruto under orders from the Hokage for 7 years. I pretty much know his abilities, how he arrives, and just about anything else about him. Sensei, you only know of the abilities I decided to show you," Naruto said with a strange glint in his eyes. "Are you so sure about that?" Kakashi retorted with a sparkle of his own in his visible eye. Sparks flew between them. As the fireworks show went off, Shino and Hinata sighed. Like teacher, like student, apparently. The staring contest ended when Kakashi withdrew his stare to speak to his team. Naruto gave a small smirk, silently congratulating himself for winning such a contest against the legendary Sharingan user. No matter how strong Naruto was, he realized that Kakashi was still by far stronger. To win any contest against this man was a great accomplishment by itself. Guy and the third Hokage were the only ones who knew what that feeling of defeating Kakashi at something was, and Naruto wanted to be part of that group. "Alright guys, today we'll be taking your Genin test," Kakashi said. "We took the test already, didn't we?" Hinata asked with a cute tilt of her head to the side, eyes holding curiosity. Naruto glanced at her like that before turning his head away. Kakashi noted he wasn't blushing, but the very corners of his lips were threatening to commit mutiny and break his impassive expression. "You might think you did, but you didn't. See, that test was to weed out the hopeless causes. But out of the 27 graduates, only 9 will pass. In other words, a total of 3 teams will pass," Kakashi explained, enjoying the look of horror from Hinata, startle from Shino, and the narrowed eyes from Naruto. "What's the test?" Shino said in his monotonous attitude. "Simple," Kakashi said, drawing 2 bells from his back pouch. "You 3 will attempt to get these bells from me. I hate to point out the obvious, but you only have 2 bells." Naruto stated. "Oh really? Gee, I must have lost the third somewhere," Kakashi said, voice laced with sarcasm to the asshole power. "Obviously, the person who doesn't get the bell will be tied to a stump, forced to watch us eat our lunch, and then ultimately sent back to the academy." As he said this, he took out 3 bento boxes from seemingly nowhere, listening intently for the sounds of stomach growling. He was surprised, however, to find that not one sound was made. He produced an alarm clock from nowhere as well before turning to them. "I thought I told you not to eat breakfast," he stated. "Yes, let's not eat and then face one of the best ninja in the shinobi world on an empty stomach," Naruto said with the accompanying roll of the eyes. "Breakfast is, after all, the most important meal of the day." Hinata spoke up, trying her best not to stutter. Ever since her charisma boosts, she had been trying harder than ever to suppress that stutter. She had it mostly down-packed, but it would appear every once in a while. "Next step. Stop her blushing." Kakashi sighed. "I guess you guys are smarter than I took you for," he said, causing them to smile a little. "Anyhow, when the alarm clock goes off at 1 o'clock, the test is over," he said. "And one last thing. Come at me with the intent to kill." As soon as that cursed K-word left his lips, 3 kunai almost impaled him. The genius, however, easily plucked the lead one out of the air and deflected the other 2. A second Kakashi popped up and held a kunai to Naruto's throat, whose arm was still outstretched. "I never said start," he said in a bored tone. "But, you can begin now." With that said, The Naruto in the clone's grasp dispersed into smoke. Shino and Hinata leapt at him, but Kakashi performed a well-timed substitution jutsu with his clone, who knocked the two away with ease. Satisfied and confident that the clone could easily take care of them, he ran off, in search of one blonde ninja. It wasn't even a full minute after Kakashi had journeyed into the surrounding forest when several shuriken whizzed towards Kakashi from through a tree branch. Leaping high into the sky off of his current branch, Kakashi managed to evade the deadly flying stars. However, his reprieve was over before it began, as 3 kunai knives, with explosive tags attached to them, came flying at him from above. Glancing up, he saw a Naruto clone smirking at him as they got closer and closer. Not one to be outdone, Kakashi just switched with the Naruto clone, who was killed by the explosion he created. But apparently Naruto had anticipated that move, because when Kakashi arrived in the air, a water dragon was about to slam into him. Cursing, Kakashi used his chakra to make a chakra shield in front of him. The water dragon slammed into it, breaking through with almost relative ease. However, Kakashi's chakra had dulled the impact enough to take the hit without feeling pain. Instead, it just felt like someone had sprayed him with a fire hose, pushing him to the ground but not hurting him in any way. "Curses Naruto, you got my hair wet," Kakashi stated as his gravity-defying hair succumbed to its natural enemy, having gained too much weight from the water. It fell in front of his eye, hindering his sight only by a slight amount. Naruto didn't respond with words. Instead, he drew his trusty short sword and flew at Kakashi, aiming to decapitate the man from behind. Kakashi simply ducked, and as the blonde genin passed over him, he kicked upward with expert timing. His foot met Naruto's stomach, sending him flying upwards from the impact. Naruto just simply went with it. Not even bothering to reposition himself, he simply threw his blade into the air, creating hand signs. "Fire style. Fireball jutsu," he exclaimed, launching a searing ball of flames at his teacher. Astonishingly, Kakashi created another thin layer of chakra, slicing through the flames with ease. Finally turning himself in a total 180, Naruto caught his flying blade and flipped back, slicing through the air with his sword. "One sword style. Chakra blade," he stated. A wave of blue chakra, taking the imprint of Naruto's blade, sliced through the air easily. It forced Kakashi to leap out of his ring of flames. The chakra cut 3 inches to the ground, according to Kakashi's estimate. Naruto used his advanced chakra control to direct himself through the air with gentle breezes. As he landed, Kakashi appeared before him. Cursing, he threw his arms in front of him, seeing a fist aimed his face. As a result of blinding himself, he was thrown back by a fist to the stomach. Naruto flipped and spring-boarded off a tree, launching his feet in a dropkick at his Jonin-sensei. Kakashi sidestepped and jumped away, launching 2 kunai. Naruto weaved his way through them before launching a kick at Kakashi. Kakashi deflected the kick away and ducked under a roundhouse kick before launching himself away as Naruto's other foot swung at his face. The two ninja looked at each other before nodding. The mental challenge sent by Kakashi was accepted by Naruto. "Take this. Demon skill. Hell flames," Naruto said. "Shit." Kakashi cursed as the white flames from the 5th circle of hell attacked him with ferocity. Hitaki's secret clan technique, white chakra shield. Almost instantly, white-colored chakra blasted to form a dome-like structure around Kakashi. The white flames slammed futilely at the shield before disappearing, adding to the shield. "What?" Naruto said, slack-jawed as Kakashi smiled at him. Hitaki's secret clan technique, white chakra cannon. As soon as he finished, the still raging white chakra formed into a beam that hit Naruto straight in the chest. Acting like a very powerful water gun, it shoved Naruto far away, through several trees and into the lake. What the hell just happened? Naruto wondered as he floated downward into the lake. "I didn't tell you this secret because I thought that you'd never have to know it. The hell flames and every other demon skill was the ultimate weapon in the early days. Unfortunately, because of that, we foolishly went around fighting those who challenged us with these attacks. They created mass destruction, and Earth as you know it was almost destroyed. Kami, the god of heaven, saw what was happening on this land and decided to grant humans 3 special abilities to combat us. She did so by creating 3 clans on Earth, perfect for fighting demons of any kind. The first group were the Senju. They were granted the power of control over us demons. How, we do not know. It is, however, suspected that because of their special wood chakra, they are able to tame us. I think that it's because it feels like nature itself is ashamed of you, and so you try to stop. The only Senju left is Tsunade of the Sannin, but she never activated her bloodline. The second group were your kin, the Uzumaki. They were granted a bloodline called chakra chains. With this bloodline, their hair would grow to impossible amounts. When the Uzumaki added chakra to their hair, it became as hard as the hardest material the earth knows. It was even strong enough to subdue and restrain us-tailed beasts in our true form. You, so far as I know, are the only Uzumaki left, as your native village, Uzushogakure, was destroyed in the war. The final group, forgotten by many, were named the Hitaki. The Hitaki had a bloodline called White Chakra. This chakra is the pure form of holy chakra, made solely to counter all demonic attacks. Against an experienced Hitaki who mastered his bloodline, even I would lose. The last Hitaki is Kakashi, as the clan was brutally massacred during the Third War, and then Kakashi's father committed suicide. So, to reiterate, don't battle against a Hitaki, Uzumaki, or a Senju with demon skills. Ever. Kyuubi concluded his speech. Naruto was stunned into silence. Fuck. Shino and Hinata sighed as the Kakashi clone got up again, for what had to be the 10th time. Honestly, they knew that it was a clone. They wanted to go help Naruto, knowing that he couldn't hold out against Kakashi for long. But the damn clone got up every time they supposedly destroyed it. Secret Aburame technique. Bug blast. Shino drawled as his Kikachu blasted the clone back into a tree, trying to drain the chakra from him. Instead, the clone flared his lightning chakra, leaving Shino's Kikachu paralyzed but not dead. The clone charged at Shino, intent on taking him out, but Hinata intercepted the attempt. The clone moved to the right to dodge a strike, before mirroring his actions in the opposite direction. He tried to flip over her, but the persistent girl followed the clone with her hand and struck the clone in the heart. It flew into the air, stunned enough for Shino's next move. Secret Aburame technique. Wasp's Wrath, he said as his special hive of wasps came out to stab Kakashi's clone repetitively. The special hive had two main factions. One group, 90% of the whole hive, had poison-coated stingers. The other 10% had a special paralyzing venom coated on its stingers. The paralyzing wasps stung the clone repeatedly in midair before leaving the paralyzed clone. Only, when they flew away, it revealed a log instead. Shino cursed and moved his head to the left as a punch seared by, almost grazing his cheek. The flying spiders tried to wrap up the arm, but the clone disappeared and reappeared in front of Shino. Shino tried to block, but the chakra-infused punch knocked the Aburame back. Wind style. Gentle fist strike. A female voice called behind the clone, who spun to see Hinata standing in the Hyuga's stance. She again tried to close a tenketsu, but Kakashi's clone jumped back to dodge. To his shock, the front of his jacket was cut, though Hinata never touched him. What? He wondered out loud. Hinata smiled. The Hyuga are allowed to use their elemental affinities in using their gentle fist attacks. Now take this. Water wind style. Water palms, she said. Immediately, her speed increased so that the clone could only see afterimages. Once he located her, he cursed. Of course, she was right in front of him, with both palms covered in water. She thrust forward with both palms, hitting him square in the chest and sending him tumbling along the ground. He noticed that the water had increased the power behind the palm. He also noted that the water started spreading everywhere, starting with his arms and legs before finally drenching him. What is this? He asked as he got slower and heavier. Hinata smiled again. My original technique. By using my water chakra, I can cover my hands with water. The water will spread around the object touched, slowing them down, making them easier to catch up to, and slowly setting in hypothermia. My wind chakra allows me to move much faster, explaining the high speed boost you saw. True to her words, he felt himself getting slower, both physically and mentally, a cause of the hypothermia. Fire style. Firefly gathering, a voice exclaimed to his side. Not able to move or think straight, the clone could only sit there and feel as several small, white-hot embers started gathering around him, from the feet up. At last, as it covered his whole body, the voice continued. Explode. The monotone drawled. Instantly, all the embers exploded in a small burst of fire. The clone fell to the clone, writhing in pain as the fire licked away at his skin, until at last, the clone finally dispersed. Shino and Hinata sighed. Those attacks took a lot out of them. The amount of chakra needed to create so many embers of fire was astonishing for someone like Shino, whose reserves were small. And Hyuga's typically had relatively small chakra coils, so the amount of chakra it took for her to cover her hands in wind chakra, and then to cover it in water and move at high Jonin speeds using chakra, was draining. We need to get to Naruto. I admit we won't be much of a help, but he's fighting a Jonin Sharingan no Kakashi at that. Shino stated in a rather long speech. If Hinata had to be honest with herself, she could say that that was the longest she'd ever heard Hin speak. But that idle thought put aside, she nodded and took off after the Aburame. Kakashi sighed as he received his clone's memories of how the battle went. The duo were certainly more skilled than he had thought they were. Individually, they were about Chunin in strength. But working together, they proved more than a match for his clone. They figured out the purpose of this test as well, so I suppose that I should pass them. But I can handle them. Plus, they haven't fought with Naruto yet, so I need to see how they work as a team. He glanced up at the sun. It should be about 12:30, so I can probably assume that this will be their last stand. But Naruto's been under for nearly 10 minutes. He hasn't drowned, has he? Kakashi thought analytically. No, Naruto has a wind affinity. He's probably thinking of a plan, while preserving himself. 2 identical clones burst from the lake, followed shortly by a third. The 2 reached about 15 meters in the air, while the third reached the 20-meter mark. The first 2 looked like they floated at the peak of their jump before turning and rocketing at him, face first. The third did a front flip before following them, only feet first instead. Kakashi jumped back as the duo crashed face first into the dirt. It kicked up a dirt cloud, hindering his sight. The puffs of smoke that also went up didn't help. He heard the third land, but couldn't determine where. Annoyed, Kakashi made some hand seals. Wind style. Great breakthrough, he said. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Naruto's voice said. As the cloud was blown away, Kakashi watched in horror as his wind attack collided with the fireball and came back at him. Kakashi quickly jumped back, straight into the water, thinking he was safe as the superheated fireball passed over him. Water style. 5 great hunting sharks, a distorted voice said. He looked behind him as 5 water sharks swam fiercely at him, with Naruto, who had an air bubble around his head, swimming behind them. Kakashi swam away, heading towards the shoreline. The sharks swam faster, gaining on him quickly. Fortunately for the Jonin, he reached the shoreline quickly enough. He grinned as the 5 sharks stopped, glaring at the male who was now standing back on the earth. He turned away, however, to meet a brightly smiling Hinata. Hello. 8 trigrams. 2 palms. Her hands blurred at the Jonin, who was smirking. He dodged with ease, much to her shock. 4 palms. 8 palms. 16 palms. 32 palms. 8 trigrams. 64 palms. The girl stated, getting more and more agitated as he started dodging each and every of her attacks. He even spun around the final heart palm and grabbed her by the collar of her Eskimo jacket before throwing her into the recently arrived Shino. The 2 slammed into a tree, until Shino dissolved into bugs. Secret Aburame technique. Chakra drain. The boy said as a chain of bugs flew at Kakashi, who jumped away and started running from them. He threw a kunai with an explosive note attached to it at the stream of bugs, which halted and spread apart. The kunai traveled undisturbed by the bugs until it reached Shino, where it exploded with such force that the log was hurled into the lake. Substitution, huh? Kakashi asked lazily as the 3 landed, kneeling a good 10 feet away and panting for breath. Even Naruto was breathing slightly harder than normal, but as always, he was the first to jump back up. Lightning style. Electromagnetic murder, he announced as a wave of lightning flew at the copy nen. Water style. Water wall, he countered as the water from the nearby lake swirled around him. The lightning attack clashed with the water defense, shocking the water. However, Kakashi lay unharmed in the center, as a droplet of water never touched him. Water style. Water dragon jutsu. he exclaimed as the electric-charged water swirled even further into a dragon. It was 20 feet easy, and its baleful yellow eyes stared down the three helpless genin. Shadow style. Void portal absorption, Naruto said as a portal of endless voids opened before him and his friends, swallowing the dragon whole. Naruto grinned and performed the counterattack to the move. Shadow style. Void portal ejection, he stated. The water dragon, along with a huge fireball and several mud bullets, fired right back out of the portal. Kakashi gulped as each attack got closer and closer. The three grinned and Kakashi sighed as he stood, tied to the training post. Shino and Hinata held a bell each, while Naruto stood with his tanto pointed at Kakashi's throat. How did this happen again? Kakashi asked, still a little shocked at what had happened. Naruto grinned before answering. It's rather easy. You used the substitution jutsu with that log, but didn't realize that Shino's bugs were weight NG for you. They tied you to the log, we took the bells, and then we untied you and tied you here. Kakashi sighed once more. You did good. Suddenly, however, both Kakashi and the bells disappeared in puffs of smoke. They heard his voice coming from a nearby tree. But not good enough. As he said that, the alarm went off, signifying the end of the test. How did you? When did you? Wah? Naruto asked, rather shocked. Kakashi eyes smiled. You thought you caught me, but I had made a shadow clone a while back. I did a double substitution, you might say. I substituted with the log and did so again in rapid succession with my clone. After you attacked earlier with the water dragon after the explosions, I learned that if you knew where I would substitute to, then you would have an attack already set up. So, I subbed again with my clone, who had two clones hanged into bells. He explained. Everyone's jaws dropped. Kakashi Hitaki was a genius, that much was certain. So, we fail? Hinata asked uncertainly. No, you pass, Kakashi said. Surprise was evident on Hinata's and Shino's face, while Naruto narrowed his eyes in suspicion. Why did we pass? Naruto asked. The goal of the test was to retrieve the bells, but what I was testing for was to see if you all could work as a team. Without teamwork, you three are nothing. There is always going to be someone stronger than you, but with teamwork, you can defeat them. My best friend once told me right before he died. He trailed off. Everyone leaned in as Kakashi, who had turned away from them at the beginning of his speech, looked back at them. Those who break the rules are trash, but those who abandon their friends are worse than trash. Everyone smiled at the wise words, and the three genin silently vowed to heed those words to the best of their ability. Now, tomorrow we begin our first day as Team 7, Kakashi said. The three genin grinned even wider, and Kakashi gave an eye smile. But Naruto is tied to the log. Why me? He asked. Because IWUVU, Otuoto. And with that, three of the team members ate happily, while the fourth planned several ways on how to kill his teacher. After Kakashi left, leaving the three alone, however, the world around them froze and several words appeared in the air. A small brown object strolled down the streets, glancing from side to side every few seconds in watch for Konoha shinobi. It was brown, with light brown stripes on its head. The most distinguishing feature, however, was the red ribbon on its right ear. This creature was the daimyo wife's pet cat, Tora. To all the other Konoha shinobi, however, it was known as the demon cat from hell, despised second to the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Why? Well, let's see. Naruto sat in a tree about 5 feet behind the cat, glaring at the damn cat that he had captured 20 times in the last week. It had maimed his face so badly that he would have been scarred for life if it weren't for the Kyuubi working overtime. Why the daimyo's wife was in Konoha for so long was a mystery in itself. Why she brought the damn cat just made no sense. Shino sat about 10 feet off to the right of the cat, also glaring at it. One time, it had cut up the top of his coat and broken his glasses, showing his face to Konoha. Why was that so bad? 1. It was in the middle of the shopping district, full of females his age. 2. Aburames had very handsome faces, though none knew that. When those two combined, the end result was that the Aburame had ended up with his own fangirl club. Almost every day after his missions were over, Naruto, Shino, and Shikamaru would have to flee before the seemingly endless amounts of horny teenage girls and the occasional adult, meeting Sasuke once in a while as well. Ever since then, Shino had hated the cat with every fiber of his being. He was pretty sure that even now, at least 3 fangirls were tailing him. After all, how was it that they knew exactly what time he was done with his duties and where he would be? Hinata glared at the cat from about 7 feet from the front of it. During one of the missions, it had made a beeline into the Hyuga compound. It somehow made it inside her house, tearing up her bed, her room, her father's room, and her favorite doll of when she was young. It also wrecked just about everywhere else in the compound, and even when her cousin, Neji, had struck it in the heart with a violent palm thrust, it had still survived and had enough to keep running. Needless to say, her father needed someone to vent his frustration out on. She could still feel the phantom pain of being knocked down every time she attempted to get into her stance. Kakashi sat on a nearby building, glaring at the cat as well. Normally, Tora would never ever find him. So when it did one mission, Kakashi was shell-shocked. That was the fatal mistake. Everyone in Konoha noticed that he had been walking around that day with the lack of his book. It was the brand new edition, signed by Jiraiya himself, and worth about 1 million ryo in the other countries, as his was a year before it hit the market. And it was gone. Tora, unsuspecting of its fate on this sunny August day, strolled onwards at a leisurely pace. That is, until Hinata dropped down in front of her. The cat hissed at her and bolted down the alleyway next to her, with Hinata in pursuit. The cat only ran faster as 20 wasps started to sting at it, injecting venom taken from the poisonous snakes of the forest of the Shadow Realm. It had no known cure and could easily kill a full-grown elephant within a minute. How Tora survived several doses of the thing, nobody knew. Tora came out on the other side of the street and raced down the road, ducking and weaving through the people scattered across it. 3 dogs, each with the Rinnegan, appeared behind her and chased her as well. Hinata rode the biggest one, and the wasps, along with Shino and Naruto, ran in the back end of the formation. Tora yipped as 3 more dogs appeared, one of which was a small, brown talking pug, appeared in front of her, cutting off her lane. She veered into a nearby alleyway that had 3 entrances, only to find out that she was trapped. 3 Rinnegan dogs and Hinata were behind the brown cat, 3 Ninken and Naruto were on her right, and Shino and his wasps were on her left. Kakashi stood on the building in front of her. Before any of the party could react, however, a small fox bolted into the scene, running by as the formation of Hinata broke. Chasing the small kid was 2 Chunin, who were each doing hand signs. Wind style. Great breakthrough, one said. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. The other performed in a deadly fire and wind combination. Everyone and everything except for Tora scattered, as the cat was too transfixed by the glow to sense any danger. The fox kid darted off to the right, and the huge fireball hit Tora straight on. The results were instantaneous. Tora screamed out in agony as the blazing flames, only fanned by the wind, cooked the cat alive. When the fire died out 5 minutes later, all that Team 7 could see were a pile of ashes and a somehow intact red bow sitting at the top. Kakashi glared at the 2 Chunin, who gulped and made the hand sealed to shushin away. Both disappeared in a plume of smoke, and everyone but Naruto deduced that they fled the scene of the crime. Naruto smirked at what really happened. The Chunin gulped, made the hand seal, and flared their chakra in a manner which suggested that they used the shushin to flee, hence the smoke cloud. What nobody knew was that the Chunin were actually his clones, as well as the fox. Since Konoha hated foxes ever since the Kyuubi attack, it was believable that they were attempting to attack what they considered a demon. Tora was in the line of fire and didn't attempt to move out of the way, so it wasn't technically their fault that she died. As the Chunin clones disappeared, the fox had run off from view and dispelled as well. Naruto had to thank Shika's ingenious tactic planning and Kajeri's flawless execution for the assassination of Tora, which was complete. Nobody fucks with Naruto Uzumaki and gets away with it. What? A woman's scream pierced the relative quietness of Konoha's busy workday. Sarutobi sighed. Team 7, care to run by me how you managed to fail a D-ranked mission, of all things? Kakashi shook his head before going through his mission report once more. We were trying to retrieve Tora and we had her trapped in an alleyway when a fox ran by, chased by 2 of Konoha's ninja. They launched a fireball after the kid, which dodged it, but Tora was in the line of fire, no pun intended, and was caught. After it cleared to reveal the ashes of the cat, they shushined away and I couldn't sense their chakra anymore. He then pulled a scroll and tossed it to the wife of the daimyo. Those are Tora's remains. Off with their heads, she screamed. Kakashi shook his head. I didn't get to see their faces, as they were wearing masks, he trailed off. After calming down and getting depressed over the death of her beloved Tora, she left, leaving the ninja alone. Well, Team 7, I guess that you've earned a C-ranked mission, seeing as how you've taken care of Tora for us. Sarutobi said with a kind smile. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? Said the Scarecrow, who already knew. Oh, come on. Obviously Naruto created clones to conveniently kill the cat. Sarutobi stated with a roll of the eyes. Naruto started sweating, to which everyone grinned at. I don't know what you mean, he said. Kakashi sighed while shaking his head. Naruto, I can tell the difference between a clone and a human being, he said. Naruto nodded but raised a question. Why didn't you just say that I killed the cat then? He asked. Because Tora was around when I was a genin, and she was as much of a pain in the ass then as she was now, Sarutobi stated. Kakashi nodded, having remembered his days of catching the thrice-damned creature. So what's the mission? Shino prompted. Usually, C-ranked missions included leaving the village, which meant that he could find new bugs to use. Also, he wished to see how strong he was. Maybe another round in the Shadow Realm wouldn't hurt him. Right, your mission is to guard this bridge builder back to his home country, the Land of Waves, Sarutobi stated while motioning for Iruka, who had been silently standing at the right of his desk, to go retrieve the client. A minute after the scarred teacher left, he returned with a drunken old man. Wash dish? I paid for ninjas, not some kiddies in their diapers. The kid in the trench coat looks emo. The girl looks like she is underconfident, and the blonde dude looks strong, but he's still just a kid, he said while getting ready to take a sip of his sake once more. To his surprise, however, when he brought the bottle full of liquid to his lips, he noticed that it was considerably lighter, and that the front of his shirt suddenly got wet. He glanced down to see his bottle cut at the handle, and then to Naruto, who had seemingly materialized a tanto out of nowhere and was holding it warily. Care to say that again? He asked somewhat menacingly. The old man, to his credit, immediately sobered up from the effects of the alcoholic beverage and spoke in a much more certified tone. I apologize for insulting the quality of your shinobi, Hokage-sama, and I am honored that you have agreed to this mission. I am Tazuna the bridge builder, and I am currently finishing up the bridge that will soon connect the Land of Waves mainland with the Land of Fire, thus ensuring a trade route between us, and ultimately boosting both countries' power in one way or another, he stated. Kakashi nodded at the information he received before clapping once, drawing his genin's attention. Alright, Team 7, pack for what I assume will be a 2-week stay and meet at the Eastern Gate in an hour, he said. Everyone nodded and left to carry out their respective business. Naruto, Shino and Hinata to pack, Kakashi to go find the next book in the Icha Icha series, and Tazuna to stock up on sake and try out Konoha's version of the beverage. What nobody would anticipate was that in the ninja world, cats really do have 9 lives. Naruto stood before his 6 lead clones once more, leaving them assignments to carry out while he was gone. Hayasuke, you guys need to practice each style, he said to the taijutsu commander, who nodded and disappeared. Anju, I want you to focus on the katana. Hand me the second tanto and both sheaths, he told his kenjutsu commander to do, who merely nodded and leapt out of the window after handing over the 2 short blades. Jake, go out and learn a defensive jutsu or 2. I only know water style, water wall, and while I admit that it is powerful, a sharpened kunai covered in wind chakra could pierce it easily. Perhaps you should try to create a defensive earth-styled jutsu that creates a dome? Naruto suggested. Jake nodded and disappeared by sinking into the earth. Shika, we need wartime formations. In case a war breaks out, we need to be prepared. Shika grumbled, really seeing no need in making them, but sat in the corner of the room with about 10 other clones crowded around 2 tables, muttering amongst themselves while occasionally writing and pointing. Lisa, take the division and stay in the Anbu HQ for the whole period. You know what you're doing, said clone nodded and left in a flash of lightning. Kogari, you will stay with me on this mission. If something goes wrong, I want you to step in and cause havoc by assassinating someone. Also, have your division spread out in a 5-mile radius around us. You know, better safe than sorry and stuff like that. Kogari, if you get into a battle, you can always summon either me or the other clone commanders. The woman nodded and disappeared in a plume of smoke. Naruto gathered his supplies in a simple scroll and left, ready for his first C-rank mission. When Naruto arrived, he noticed that he was the third to have arrived, with Tazuna and Kakashi, surprisingly early, already present and talking. As he leaned against the gates, ready to leave, Shino and Hinata arrived finally. "Alright team, let's move out," Kakashi said. His team nodded and settled into the Macedonia formation. Hinata stood to the front of Tazuna, Naruto to his left, Shino to his right, and Kakashi behind him. They traveled along the dirt road at a civilian speed so as not to leave the old bridge builder behind. At first, all three genin were relatively excited to leave Konoha for their first time. The time they chased Mizuki up to the north of Konoha didn't really count, because they were in a state of emergency. However, traveling at a nice pace on a nice, warm and sunny day, outside of the village, gave them a chance to appreciate the scenery. 20 minutes outside of Konoha, they had reached a smaller village known as Nagasaki. Traveling through the village, they had made it across and through it, but after leaving the village was when they first encountered trouble. They had been stopped by a group of 10 bandits who had hoped to get some easy money out of them. But when Shino sent his wasps after them, they were dead within seconds. After that, they traveled throughout several other small towns and villages for 3 more hours in peace and quiet. The only other eventful thing was that Shino had leveled up for defeating the bandits, and had gained yet another hive of bugs. This hive, however, made Shino a threat to Naruto. The 5th type of bug Shino had were a specialized type of Kikachu. Unlike the regular ones, these Kikachu can't drain regular chakra. They feed specifically upon yokai, the demon chakra. In other words, Shino had become a real threat to the Jinchuriki of the world. The regular Kikachu would drain the human chakra, and when they were forced to call upon the demonic chakra, the other Kikachu would drain them of that as well. The only thing was, Naruto had absorbed and converted 7 taels worth of chakra, meaning that he could only draw upon 2 taels worth of demonic chakra. And that meant that he had too much chakra for several hives of Kikachu. So, in actuality, Shino had become a bigger threat, but still wasn't up there. Anyways, after the 3 hours were over, they had finally made it into Wave Country. "We're in Wave Country now," Tazuna stated proudly. "Is Wave always covered in fog?" Naruto asked, having noted that fog had settled in about 5 minutes earlier. It wasn't a hindrance, but it did slightly unnerve him. As a ninja, he couldn't really trust anything, even nature or the weather. "No, not always, but usually during this time of the year it is foggy," Tazuna replied. A few minutes later, it lifted, revealing several thousands of trees surrounding the path. After another few minutes of walking, each ninja noticed a puddle on the side of the road. It hasn't rained in a few weeks, so that puddle should have dissolved already. They thought simultaneously. The 3 genin glanced at Kakashi, who shrugged. They relaxed, knowing that he was basically telling them that it was a genjutsu but to keep up the unsuspecting facade. As they passed by, 2 people rose from the puddle. They were almost identical, and wore the Kirigakure headband, but with a slash going horizontally through the center. Silently moving, they quickly wrapped their chain around Kakashi, who appeared stunned. Pulling together, they sliced Kakashi into pieces, and watched as his blood splattered all against the ground. "One little piggy," the one to the left said. Shino and Hinata surrounded the stunned bridge builder, while Naruto stepped forward with a growl. Gozu and Maizu, the demon brothers of the mist, 2 C-rank Chunin missing nin from Kiri. "Why are you 2 here?" he asked. Maizu, the one to the right, smirked underneath his mask. "Oh, so the little genin thinks he can play with the big boys, huh? Listen, punk, hand over the old fart, hey. Over there and we might let you go in peace," he said. Naruto appeared in thought for a second, which scared Tazuna. Nah," he said as a reinforced clone appeared next to him. Naruto drew his tanto and charged Gozu, who zigzagged at him, while Maizu headed for the bridge builder, only to meet the clone. Gozu released the chain holding him and his twin brother together as several shuriken attempted to impale it and keep them against the tree. He reached Naruto and slashed at the boy, who sidestepped through the attack. Inside of Gozu's guard, he plunged one of his tanto through Gozu's collarbone. As Gozu fell to the ground in pain, Naruto tried to finish him off with the second tanto coming down on his neck, but Gozu miraculously blocked the attack with his gauntlet. Naruto grunted, took his first blade back out, and used chakra to backtrack as the poisoned gauntlet almost clawed his stomach. He whizzed 2 shuriken at Gozu, who managed to stand and block them with the gauntlet. He released the gauntlet to start making hand signs, which Naruto started to do as well by sheathing his swords. Water style. Water bullet, Gozu said as he released a flying orb of water at the genin. Naruto jumped up, finally finishing his hand signs and releasing water from a water bottle he had been carrying. Water style. Water dragon jutsu, he said as the water made a small dragon only about 5 feet long. The dragon, though smaller, packed the same punch and was 3 times faster than the regular-sized dragon. It charged at Gozu, who jumped out of its path, but was knocked out as it twisted and hit him in midair, sending him through several trees along the way. The clone ducked under a slash and leaned back from Maizu's foot. From his position, he drew a kunai and stabbed into Maizu's thigh. He stood and was punched away as Maizu flailed wildly in pain. As he did, several flying spiders appeared and started spitting silk at him. They flew around him, wrapping him up, until at last, he was tied up. "Let me go so I can fucking kill you all," he snarled as he struggled against the special silk. Naruto cracked a grin in response. "Telling me that you're going to kill me won't make me come any closer," he stated. As Maizu continued to growl and shout, Kakashi chose that time to show up. "Hey team, good job in the situation. Naruto, I like how you battled these guys, and Shino and Hinata. You two did well in deciding to immediately guard Tazuna," he said. "If this were a test, you'd all have gotten an A." Maizu glared at the elite Jonin. "How are you still alive?" Kakashi completely ignored his question and hauled the missing nin over his shoulder. "You 3 stay here with Tazuna. I'm going to interrogate Maizu," he said. "What about Gozu?" Naruto asked. Kakashi waved his free hand. "Decapitate him and take his bounty. I believe that it's 33 million for Gozu and 30 million for Maizu, nay?" he said. Naruto struck a thinking pose. "That sounds about right." They all turned to the now crying Maizu. "Don't you dare touch my brother, you sons of," he screamed through his tears. Kakashi dropped him on his head, effectively silencing him. "Silence, you," he said while picking him up and walking away. Naruto sent a clone to go finish off Gozu, and decided to contact Kogari. Kogari, Naruto thought, contacting her via a mental link he shared with all of his clone commanders. "How did they get by you? I'm good at assassination, not scouting. They weren't there when my squad passed by," she responded. Naruto went silent for a second before splitting a mental grin. "Kogari, you're a freaking genius. I could kiss you right now," he mentally exclaimed. "I'd much rather prefer a lot more than that," she whispered seductively. Naruto ignored it, having been used to such behavior from her. You see, thanks to the generous assets Naruto gave Kogari, she gained a little bit wilder side. She hid it behind the mask of seriousness that she wore when having business, but it still existed, venturing out when she and Naruto were alone. Since he was having a private conversation with Kogari that none of the other clones and even Kyuubi couldn't hear, she was showing that second nature. "I'll make a scouting division when I get back." "Thanks," he said. "Sure thing, Naruto," she said as they both sensed another clone trying to contact him, and thus her slipping back into her professional mask. "Hey, boss," Jake's voice intoned in Naruto's head. "What is it, Jake?" Naruto asked. "We designed that jutsu and a lot of others, like, you have about 5 new jutsu now. I'm going to dispel the whole division and myself, so you can get all that info and experience," he said. Naruto mentally nodded. "I think that I could use you as well on this mission," Naruto thought before Jake closed the connection. Several seconds later, the information feeding process began. By the minute's end, Naruto knew the 5 new jutsu that Jake was talking about, and couldn't help but grin. Jake was the head of the ninjutsu division for 2 reasons. The first reason was that he had an uncanny ability to learn jutsu. It was almost like the Sharingan, but he didn't have to see the jutsu in action. All he needed were the mechanics behind it, and he could pull it off with relative ease. The second reason was that he was, in every sense, a ninjutsu genius. Besides the fact that he could learn jutsu at an incredible rate, he had a great and creative imagination. As such, it was no surprise that in a few hours by himself, Jake had created no less than 5 jutsu. "Boss," he heard the clone he said come back. He turned to it, to see that he had a scroll with the words, "Gozu's Bounty," written on it. He nodded and took the scroll. What happened to his body? He asked. The clone scratched his head sheepishly. I didn't know what to do with it. Naruto sighed, dispelled the clone, and summoned Metsui and his cleanup division. Guys, I need you to take care of a body about 2 minutes to the east. He said. The cleanup division was good at cleaning everything and anything up. From dog shit to human corpses. Naruto could depend on them. Metsui nodded as she and a few other clones disappeared from their view. So, what do you make of this mission so far? Naruto asked, leaning against a tree to make himself more comfortable. It's got a lot of action. Too much action for a C rank. Shino said. This statement raised both Naruto's and Hinata's suspicion as well. That's true. A C rank only details for bandits, not missing ninja as well. For the demon brothers to actually deem Tazuna important enough to target is questionable for this ranking. Naruto responded. Who knows what else we might run into? Hinata whispered, suddenly feeling a little more scared. I do. Kyuubi suddenly stated. Naruto stood up straight, giving his attention to the demon lord. What is it? He asked. There's another demon nearby. He's low ranked in comparison to me, but your teacher should be able to handle it, albeit with a minimum amount of your help. Honestly, why does this man have demons after him? I swear, this mission is more trouble than it's worth. He responded, rather tired and wary of the mission already. He suspected that nothing would get any better as well. He turned to Tazuna just as his sensei arrived back in the clearing, free of an unwilling accomplice. Kakashi-sensei, where's the other one? Naruto asked as he felt Metsui disperse. Apparently, the uses of gasoline were helpful in taking care of a corpse. I left him tied to a tree so that the Anbu can come and arrest him. Now, he said, turning to the relieved bridge builder. Naruto, sensing what he was about to say, intoned along with him. Care to explain why the demon brothers are after you? They both asked the now suddenly sweating Tazuna, leaking concentrated amounts of killing intention. To his credit, Tazuna held his tongue for a full minute before giving out. Alright, I'll tell you. You know Gato, right? He asked. The three genin shook his head, while Kakashi took on a quizzical expression. Gato, as in the CEO of Gato Shipping Corporation? Kakashi asked. Receiving an affirmative from the elderly man, he motioned for him to continue on. Gato may seem like a respectable person if you have never met him. But in reality, he is one of the biggest mob bosses in the crime underworld. At this revelation, Kakashi's visible eye widened a small amount. What do you mean? He asked, slightly startled by this new development. Gato hires missing ninja and bandits to take out those he considers a threat to him. He responded. So he considers you a threat to him because you're building a bridge? Naruto asked, skeptical of the whole idea. You don't understand why. About a year ago, Gato decided that he wanted to rule a country. He set his sights upon the small nation of Wave Country. Using his enormous wealth, he hired several thousands of bandits that quickly defeated our samurai and ninja. Our military forces gone, he took over the country and took all of our monetary value from us. Tazuna explained. What about the daimyo? Shino asked. Even he has gone poor. We have lived in extreme poverty for years now, and Wave has lost all of its former glory. The people are depressed, the country is dilapidated, and all because of that fat pig. So why are you building the bridge? Naruto questioned once more. If we can finish this bridge, then we can establish trade with the Fire Country. Gato doesn't want us to get any form of power wealth included back, so he sent assassins after me to halt the progress of this bridge. If you can protect me, you can virtually save this country. Tazuna said. That's nice and all, but why only a C-ranked mission? This is a B-ranked, bordering a ranked mission. By rule, we are allowed to walk off this mission with the funds that you paid us. Kakashi stated. We couldn't afford anything else. Tazuna replied simply, tears starting to water in his eyes. Kakashi sighed and turned back to his team, who was staring at him with equally blank expressions. I'm giving this call to you guys. You demanded this mission, so you get to choose whether you want to complete it. He tells them, I'm going to complete this mission. They need our help, and as shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, it is our duty to help them. Shino replied in a monotone. I'm going, too, Hinata said. The three turned their glances to Naruto, who had strangely not given his agreement yet. Well? Kakashi prompted. Did you really need to ask? The Kyuubi Jinchuriki stated. Kakashi sighed. Alright, I guess that we continue the mission then. Kakashi stated. Naruto nodded. But Kakashi-sensei, we need to be very, very careful from here on out. Kyuubi told me that he senses a demon nearby. He also said that you should be able to defeat him, but I wanted to let you know now instead of then. At this, Kakashi cocked an eyebrow. A demon is coming after you? He asked to the bridge builder. I guess, he stammered out. Had Gato really wanted him dead that badly to send a demon after him? Kakashi sighed again. I swear, life is never simple. About 30 minutes later, the group of 5 reached the shoreline of an ocean. Now what? Naruto asked. We wait for the ferryman to come back. Tazuna stated. 10 more minutes of waiting later, a hazy figure slowly emerged from the fog-covered sea. It drifted towards them like a ghost, ever so slowly. Finally, the figure reached the shoreline, revealing the ferryman with his boat. He motioned for them to come to him and his boat. Several minutes later, the 6 were sitting in the middle of the ocean, silent as the ferryman rowed their boat. The tension was thick as the mist grew thicker and thicker. Finally, Hinata could stand the feeling no longer and asked a question. Why are we all so silent? She asked. Shush, the ferryman hissed at her. Gato has thugs stationed everywhere. They might hear you. No one spoke after that. An hour later, after having seen the bridge and disembarking from the boat, the 4 ninja and the bridge builders silently trekked down the dirt path towards Tazuna's home. The mist and fog had picked up so much that there was barely half a mile of visibility. This unnerved all present. None of them had forgotten Naruto's warning of a demon nearby. A small rustling in the bush set off Hinata's already very jumpy nerves. She turned and released a kunai in the direction of the foliage. A small squeak was heard before a white rabbit hopped out of the bush, scared to death. Naruto's and Kakashi's eyes instantly narrowed, with Shino's and Hinata's following milliseconds later. Kakashi-sensei, if it is the middle of the summer, shouldn't that rabbit have brown fur? Shino questioned. The Cyclopean Jonin nodded curtly at his bug-using student. If it has white fur, then it's been raised inside. For substitution purposes. Naruto and Hinata finished at the same time. At that moment, Kogari rang inside of Naruto's mind. Duck, she screamed. As she said that, a huge blade came flying at Tazuna. Kakashi cursed. Hit the floor, he ordered while diving at the bridge builder. Naruto and Shino jumped over the blade, while Hinata sunk under it. The impact Kakashi had when he hit Tazuna sent both of them rolling away from danger. The huge blade swerved away from them before digging several inches into a nearby tree, with the hilt sticking out. A man appeared on that hilt. He wore bandages over the bottom half of his face, and had no eyebrows. His kiri headband hung loosely around his neck. Kakashi growled at the recognition of this man, with Naruto growling a second later, though for much different purposes. Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the bloody mist. It's a pleasure to meet you. Zabuza grinned crazily. Ah, Kakashi of the Sharingan. I am honored to have the chance to battle with you. He stated. Naruto bristled. Kakashi-sensei, this is the demon. He said, but that wasn't what was troubling the young genin. No, the outfit the demon of the bloody mist bore was what troubled him. Zabuza was wearing a black robe with red clouds. Zabuza was wearing a black robe with red clouds. All 3 ninja and the bridge builder raised an eyebrow at Naruto's reaction. Said blonde was shaking with rage. Naruto, what's wrong? Kakashi asked. Akatsuki. The blonde-haired genin growled in response. What is Akatsuki? Shino asked, with confusion evident in his rarely emotion-filled voice. Zabuza chuckled, bringing their attention back to him. Oh, this is rich. A Jinchuriki is on a team that has no clue of what Akatsuki is about, he laughed. Everyone narrowed their eyes. Kakashi-sensei, do not take him lightly. If he's joined the Akatsuki, then he's got to be an S-class ninja. Naruto warned. Kakashi's eyes widened. But he was an A- class ninja in the latest bingo book, he said. Zabuza chuckled again. Obviously, I have trained relentlessly to join Akatsuki. You're only an A- ranked ninja, Kakashi. You can't defeat me, he said. Kakashi shrugged. I won't know until I try, now won't I? Now, back to my main question. What is Akatsuki? He demanded, drawing a kunai and settling into a defensive stance. I will enlighten you. The Akatsuki is a group of S-class ninja that exist for one reason and one reason only, to create worldwide peace. He said, "Bullshit." Naruto cried. "I called total bullshit. Akatsuki is a terrorist organization that goes around the elemental nations, capturing all the Jinchuriki of the tailed beasts." He explained. All the ninja immediately tensed, knowing that it meant that Zabuza was after Naruto. The Akatsuki member nodded, showing his acceptance of this answer. "I expected the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed demon fox to know of us. I think you'll be glad to know that we already have the five-tailed dolphin horse in our possession," he stated. Naruto growled. "Where is your partner?" "Akatsuki always works in groups of two," he stated. Zabuza shrugged. "He's around here somewhere." "Kogari," he stated in his mind, alerting his boss clone. "I know. I'm searching for him now," Kogari stated in response. "Enough of this. I presume you are here for Naruto then?" Kakashi said. "Actually, as everybody does, Akatsuki functions off of money. I was simply on a mission to kill Tazuna over there. The fact that I can go back with the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails is just an added bonus," Zabuza stated. Kakashi moved in front of Naruto, while Shino and Hinata moved to guard Tazuna. Shino released his bugs for extra protection. "Sorry to disappoint you, Zabuza, but you won't be leaving here with anything. Not even with your life," Kakashi said, revealing his Sharingan. Zabuza just chuckled some more. "Is that so?" As soon as he finished his question, he was in between Shino and Hinata's guard. They both turned, stunned by his sudden movement. Zabuza brought his sword down, ready to cleave the poor bridge builder in half. Another boy 14 or 15, by the looks of it, stood in between some foliage. Like his master, he wore the signature black robe with red clouds of Akatsuki. He watched with an emotionless face as his master brought down his sword upon the bridge builder, only for the blonde-haired genin to intercept with two of his tanto. Zabuza, however, was stronger and had simply kicked the boy away. The Jonin sensei then rushed in, and he and Zabuza engaged in battle, with the three still guarding the old man. Silently drawing 3 senbon needles, Haku took time in aiming for the vital spots that would kill the man. After all, no one knew where he was, so they wouldn't be able to sense his attack. And he was confident that no one else was in the area with the sounds of battle going on. Everyone would have fled. Drawing his arm back in preparation for the throw, his ninja instincts kicked in. He rolled through a bush and leapt into a tree as several arrows and throwing knives came down where he had been standing and where he had rolled to. Glancing up, he saw a group of 5 clones that looked exactly like the blonde. 2 of them had bows and arrows, 2 others had several knives on hand, and the last one held a dagger in front of him. Again going off of reflex, Haku launched himself into the air. A dart crashed into the branch he had been standing on. To his immense surprise, the tree instantly wilted and the leaves turned a dark purple. All of that happened within 3 seconds. Haku glanced off to the left of the main group, and found 2 more clones. One was a very impressive girl who held a dagger in front of her. Her bow and arrows were strapped to her back, and several knives hung within a pocket. The other clone held a pipe near his mouth, poised straight at Haku's head. The young boy gasped as he saw the girl's magnificent body. She had a perfect face, the most beautiful hair, the brightest eyes, she had everything. Unable to help himself, his eyes traveled downward towards her large chest. Kogari saw this and crossed her arms under her massive S, making them appear larger than they already were. Kogari smirked. As an assassin, 2 of her biggest tools were seduction and genjutsu. With seduction, she could easily extract info from her target and kill them when they were distracted by her beauty. With her genjutsu, she could easily make someone kill themselves, or at the very least delay them until she killed them. When she combined them, however, she could get the results Haku was experiencing. She had to admit though, he was fighting the genjutsu better than anyone ever placed under it before. And considering that she worked part-time as a hunter nin and other times simply as an assassin for hire, she had placed it on a fair amount of people. Deciding to make sure that the Akatsuki member would die here, she stalked over to the very unfocused boy. He managed, however, to make her out as a threat. Stay away ff from me. I don't want to hurt you. Haku stammered out. Kogari smirked. This one was in the bag. Standing directly in front of the boy, Kogari grabbed both his hands gently and slowly started bringing them up to her large, juicy S. I doubt that you will want to hurt me. Haku's hands were 3 centimeters away. 2 centimeters away. 1 centimeter away. His pinky brushed the side of her left. As soon as he committed that act, Kogari quickly twisted her body and Haku's arms. Before he could realize what was happening, Kogari held both of his arms behind his back. A dart flew straight and true, and nailed Haku in the center of the forehead. The boy stopped moving before falling to the ground below. When he hit it, he dispersed into a puddle of water. Cursing at her failed ploy, she automatically turned with her dagger drawn once more. Slicing at the paper-thin needle aimed for the jugular at her throat, she cursed as 2 other clones behind her were taken down by the needles. Turning quickly to face her remaining troops, she saw the poison dart clone get stabbed through the gut, dispelling that one. The other 3 had needles sticking through their eyes before they dispelled as well, leaving Kogari and Haku. "How did you break the genjutsu?" she demanded, holding the dagger in front of her in a defensive stance. If he broke her genjutsu, he was at least a jonin in skills. And while she was confident she could handle a jonin, she like all the others were clones. They weren't indestructible, they were just stronger. But sooner or later, she would lose. Haku smiled just a little bit, showing true emotions. "Though you are very pretty, I am very good at detecting and breaking genjutsu." Kogari merely growled in response. Haku's smile disappeared from his face as a kunai shot from his right sleeve into his hand. In a second, metal clashing against metal was heard throughout the forest. Naruto smirked slightly as the sound of the battle he was in was accompanied by the sounds of the second battle that had just started. That either meant that Kogari had found the second Akatsuki member, or that she had found another person that was unwelcome. His smirk disappeared as he watched Kakashi get kicked to the side yet again. The Jonin sensei had several small and shallow cuts on his arms and legs. There was also a large slash going through his vest and shirt, but there was no visible wound. Zabuza, on the other hand, sported one large cut across the chest. His Akatsuki robe had long been discarded, revealing navy blue pants and his bare chest. Naruto watched as Kakashi hopped back at Zabuza, only to jump up as Zabuza's blade almost cut him in half. The Jonin launched 3 kunai at Zabuza, but the demon had knocked them aside with his large sword. Kakashi landed about 10 feet away from Zabuza, kneeling on his right knee. Naruto appeared right in front of Kakashi just in time. Zabuza had ran directly at the man, ready to decapitate him. Naruto held his blades out, ready to block the attack. As Kakashi dropped down to dodge, however, Naruto found himself thrown through the air and landing in the lake with a large boom. "Holy shit, he's strong," Naruto thought as he resurfaced in time to see Kakashi get trapped within a water dome. "Naruto, I want you to hold off Zabuza while the others escape. Then run. You guys don't stand a chance against him," Kakashi ordered. "No way, sensei. Those who break the rules are trash, but those who abandon their friends are worse than trash," Naruto recited. Zabuza sneered. "Pathetic." And with that said, he created several water clones. 5 headed for the bridge builder while the other 5 charged Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki backpedaled, channeling chakra into his 2 blades. 2 sword style. "Double chakra blade slash," he said, swiping at the clones. 2 blades of chakra each flew from a tanto. 3 of the clones were dispersed from not having reacted enough. The 4th had simply cut through the attack, while the 5th kept moving because he had not been targeted. Naruto ran in a burst of speed and quickly slashed 1 clones down. The final clone swung his heavy blade at Naruto. The blonde rolled under the slice and stood, ready to decapitate the clone. The clone, however, spun around with his blade, both effectively dodging the attack and attempting at slicing Naruto in half. The blonde did a front flip, jumping over the attack while slicing at the Zabuza clones. The clone managed to dodge the first sword, but the second sword sliced the left arm off. Having taken too much damage, the clone fell apart in a heap. Shino cursed and released his demonic Kikachu bugs as the 5 Zabuza clones ringed around the 2 genin and the bridge builder. They were surrounded, and that was never really a good thing. One of the 5 ran in as the other 4 adjusted the shape to make a square. The wasps and demonic bugs swarmed the clone. The clone managed to cut through a few wasps, but quickly enough the bugs took the clone down. Only then, when Hinata gasped, did Shino pay attention to the 4 clones that had not attacked yet. And when he saw them, he nearly peed his pants. Each clone had the famous sword stuck into the soil next to it. The clones themselves had just finished making hand signs. Above each clone, a large, black fire dragon floated. Demon skill. Black fire dragon, 1. Each clone roared before falling into puddles, having poured all of the chakra Zabuza had prohibited them with into the attack. The dragons roared so loudly that Kakashi's Chidori sounded like a whisper, and then they charged, all intent on destroying them. Suddenly, a blur appeared right in front of Shino, just finishing hand signs. Shadow Dome. Ultimate protection. Naruto stated. Every shadow in a 20-foot radius contorted to Naruto's will until a dome of shadows surrounded the group. Each dragon flew directly into the dome, giving off the impression that they had simply phased right through the shadows. Naruto knew, however, that the shadows had absorbed the attacks. As the dome fell back into shadows, Naruto knelt on one knee, breathing somewhat heavily. The shadow dome always took a lot out of him, for no real reason other than it had a very high chakra consumption demand. "Are you okay, Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked. Naruto nodded and stood back up, already doing hand signs. "Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu," he said. Several small fireballs flew from his mouth, covering a wide area. Zabuza cursed, realizing that he had to let go of the dome to even hope of surviving the barrage. And so he did. Having sliced through the last attack, he was about to go and chop the genin in half when he felt a knife at his throat. Ahead, Kakashi's head, to be more specific, leaned into his ear. "Don't forget, your opponent is me," he said. Zabuza just responded by falling into a puddle of water. Kogari cursed as she fell to one knee, breathing very heavily. Haku had stuck her with several senbon. She also had a few slashes here and there. Haku smiled at her apologetically. "I'm sorry that I put you through this, but you are a threat, and threats must be eliminated." With that, he tossed one of the few kunai he carried with him at Kajeri's head, striking her through the brain and dispelling her. He turned back towards the battle at hand to see that his master was about to be taken out by the copy ninja. "Kuso," he whispered to himself before disappearing in a blur. Kakashi and Zabuza separated from the clash yet again. Inexplicably, the copy ninja had picked up his game when fatigue was setting in, and was now able to keep up with the S-class ninja that was Zabuza Momochi. Zabuza knew that he was running low on chakra, and needed to end the battle fast. Now was as good a time as ever. Placing the large blade on his back, he began a long series of hand signs. Kakashi saw this and also started hand signs, though he was doing it slightly faster. But since he was a few hand signs behind, the two high-class ninja finished at the exact same time. "Water style. Water dragon jutsu," they exclaimed. At once, the nearby water started to stir violently until two identical beasts made of water stood above their creator. Each beast roared once before proceeding to demolish each other. As the rain fell, Zabuza started another long set of seals that he knew would be his last jutsu. He grinned as he noticed that Kakashi was several hand signs slower than him. He only had 5 more hand signs left to do. Demon skill. Uprising of the dead. Naruto called out. Immediately, 3 skeletons burst from the water Zabuza was standing on and tried to confine him with their bones. Zabuza, one with quick reflexes, immediately cut the chakra from his feet to dodge the attack. Only then did he realize that Kakashi was still continuing the jutsu and that he had stopped. Water style. Water vortex jutsu. Kakashi's distorted voice said from above the water. Now, many people would think that the top half of the water vortex jutsu would be the worst part. But, as Zabuza can now tell you, the half underwater is the part you don't want to be in. While the top half simply blows you around and away, the bottom half drags you in like a vortex. Of course, then there's the constant pounding of the water, the fact that he couldn't breathe, and the sheer pressure being put on his body. Almost as quickly as it came, it ended. The bottom half also destabilized, rocketing Zabuza through the water until he crashed into a tree that was somehow still standing underwater. The water subsided enough for Zabuza to breathe and see again. The sight he saw wasn't really pretty. Several ice wolves, along with Naruto clones, were circling him slowly and deliberately. Kakashi stood above him. Chidori posed to strike him through the heart. Ice wolves? How? Zabuza asked. Kakashi shrugged. I don't really know, but I don't really care. All I care about is your death, he said. Before he could ram his hand through Zabuza's heart though, a very large roar distracted everybody but Zabuza, who grinned. A 30-foot-tall salamander roared once more, destroying basically anything and everything in its wake. Tazuna had been removed from the battlefield by Naruto, however, so there was no concern of failing the mission. Before Kakashi could turn back around however, a hand chopped him in the back of the neck, causing him to fall into unconsciousness. What the fuck? Naruto cursed as the salamander shot an ice beam out of its mouth, freezing a large area of land and several clones. A few of his ice wolves attacked the thing, but its tail had simply shattered them into oblivion. Crap, Shino said as he noticed Haku standing over the fallen form of the Hitaki. The Aburame reacted quickly, sending a stream of Kikachu from his sleeve at the ninja preparing to cut Kakashi's head off. The ninja cursed and launched the kunai at the bugs before grabbing Zabuza and shushing off. Hinata, protect Kakashi-sensei. Shino, help me take this thing down, Naruto said as he raced forward, followed by the Aburame heir. Hinata backtracked, heading for her downed sensei. Naruto and Shino stopped about 50 feet in front of the large salamander, not risking getting any closer. Naruto did several hand signs, while Shino released all of his bugs at once. Summoning jutsu, he stated. In a large puff of smoke, a very large toad appeared. Its back covered by a large blue jacket, the toad had a pipe sticking out of its mouth. Sheathed on its side was a tanto. Granted, it was several hundred times larger than a human tanto, but a tanto nonetheless. A large scar ran downward across one of the toad's big yellow eyes. Jiraiya, why have you summoned me? The large toad bellowed. The trees nearby rocked violently, almost ready to fall. Sorry for summoning you, Lord Gamabunta. But as you can see, there's a rather large salamander here, and I thought that you might want to make a wallet out of it. Naruto stated. Oh, it's you, Gaki. Who else is up there? I'm not a taxi, you know? The boss toad stated. Naruto glanced over to Shino, who was shivering quite a lot. Only then did he remember that Shino was an Aburame and that he had summoned a toad. He's a teammate of mine. Listen, the salamander can shoot ice beams somehow. Naruto said. Whatever. Get ready, because I'm about to jump. Gamabunta warned. Wah! Shino said before Gamabunta propelled himself into the air. Naruto, luckily, had anchored himself with chakra and had grabbed hold of Shino before he could fall off. Take this. Gamabunta screamed, drawing his tanto. The large amphibian fell from the sky, slicing downward in an attempt to kill the salamander. The animal was smart enough to realize Gamabunta as a threat, apparently. The large tail rose up and grasped the blade right before it cut through the animal. Gamabunta landed, while Naruto raced up his head and then leapt off. In mid-air, Naruto's Rinnegan activated. Flipping through hand signs, Naruto finished his jutsu and called out its name. Demon skill. Hell Flame Blast, he said, firing off a large blast of white fire at the salamander. The salamander fired a large ball of ice at the blast of fire. The fire burnt through it easily, but was still delayed by the attack. That gave the opposing animal enough time to yank Gamabunta's blade from the large toad and fling it into Naruto's attack, both disarming the great toad and deflecting the attack. Gamabunta hopped back, grabbing Naruto with his tongue and placing him back on top of his head next to Shino. Crap, hey, Bunta, give me oil. Shino, set me up with the wind. Naruto demanded, already starting his short chain of hand seals. Gamabunta spat out a large amount of oil, while Shino finished his hand signs. Fire style. Toad flaming bomb. Naruto said, lighting the oil with flames. Wind style. Great breakthrough. Shino performed, fanning the flames and making them burn even hotter. The salamander hissed in pain as the whole area around it exploded in sizzling heat and flames. When the flames finally died down, however, only the skin of the salamander remained. Do salamanders even shed their skin? Naruto questioned. He got no answer, however, because said salamander appeared behind the toad. Jump, Naruto said. The large toad did so just in time, because the salamander shot out a blast of fire instead of ice this time. Crap, Naruto cursed. Gamabunta started doing his own hand signs. Take this. Water style. Gunshot. The large toad exclaimed before firing 3 large orbs of water. The salamander stabbed through the first and turned the second into ice, but the third hit the salamander in its midsection, causing it to fall over. There, lightning style. False darkness. Naruto said, firing a spear of lightning out of his mouth. The lightning blast connected with the wet area of the salamander, shocking him up and down. The salamander hissed and stumbled around, knocking trees and splashing water around. We've got him on the ropes. Demon skill. Summoning. Harbinger of death. Naruto announced. The air turned freezing cold, and the mist swirled into a large skeletal figure. It was easily as tall as Gamabunta, wearing a black robe with the hood raised so that the face was unseeable. The figure also hefted the classical scythe on his shoulder. As soon as he appeared, trees in a 3-mile radius wilted and died. The figure swiped at the downed salamander, cutting its tail off. The salamander hissed, but was silenced almost immediately as the figure then kicked it in the ribcage, lifting the several-ton beast off the ground. As it floated in midair, the figure then sliced the salamander's head off. The summon dispersed as the figure disappeared. It was just a summon. Who the fuck has the salamander summoning contract, besides Hanzo the salamander? Naruto said angrily. Haku sneezed and almost fell off his ride as his salamander darted through the forest. Zabuza lay dazed behind him, held by a water clone. Haku, where are we? Zabuza slurred, almost like a drunken sailor. We are on one of my salamanders. We had to flee the battle because the Hitaki had taken you down, and before I could finish him off, the Aburame noticed me. He sent his bugs after me, and I had to flee for risk of messing up the operation. I left another summon behind to wreak havoc and delay their hunt for us. Haku said, that salamander contract saved us again, hasn't it? Pain-sama blessed us with this. Zabuza replied, thinking back. Flashback. Haku and Zabuza kneeled side by side, sweating and bleeding profusely. Their opponent, wielder of the Rinnegan, stood feet from them, not even having broken a sweat. Behind him stood 3 more bodies, each with the Rinnegan as well. They all shared orange hair and had piercings through their body. You say that you are willing to join us to hunt down the Mizukage, the Sanbi Jinchuriki. You can't even beat 4 of the paths of pain. You will die fighting the Mizukage in this state. Is that what you want? Pain droned. Haku growled loudly and stood up, doing a large set of hand signs. Ice style. Frost breath. Haku said. He blew out a large amount of cold air that immediately turned the air cold and misty. The nearby Konan and Itachi shivered. They were watching because if Zabuza and Haku passed, then with Orochimaru, there would be 12 members. Konan and Itachi, 2 of the strongest members of the group, would be paired with Pain. Sasori, Deidara, and Kisame would be another. Hidan, Kakuzu and Orochimaru would be the final group. Zabuza and Haku could operate with Zetsu if needed, but it was more likely that they would end up together as a duo rather than a trio. Ice style. Frozen wolf hunting pack. Haku continued. Several ice wolves appeared around Haku and ran into the mist, ready to take down Pain. Water style. Water dragon jutsu, Zabuza said as a water dragon appeared behind him. Ice style. Frost breath. Haku said again. He breathed onto the dragon, causing it to freeze over but not lose control and turn into an ice sculpture. Zabuza sent his now icy dragon into the mist towards their opponent. Shinra Tensai. They heard him whisper. The mist cleared, the wolves were flung away, but the dragon was unharmed. It was batted off to the side, but rammed and froze over the Naraka path. The Diva path raised a brow at that. I suppose that managing to freeze one of my bodies is a large accomplishment, as I am God. I think that you pass. Welcome to Akatsuki. The Diva path monotoned while the Preta path went over and drained the chakra from the ice, shattering it and freeing the Naraka path. Haku and Zabuza grinned before both fell over, exhausted. Konan, take care of them. Itachi, come with me. The blue-haired lady moved over to the 2 exhausted missing ninja, while Itachi followed his leader wordlessly. Haku and Zabuza bolted awake at the same time, both jumping up and out of their bed. Realizing that they had no idea where they were, both grabbed their preferred weapons. Zabuza grabbed the hilt of his decapitating carving knife, while Haku lunged and grabbed his holster of senbon needles. Armed, they slowly made their way to the door, until it burst open, showing Kisame followed by Itachi and Konan. Zabuza smirked. So this is where you went, Kisame-senpai. Kisame grinned in response at seeing his long-lost pal. Zabuza Momochi, demon of the mist. Welcome to the club, he exclaimed, moving towards his former seven swordsmen. Before they could reach each other, however, Conan coughed, interrupting the moment. Welcome to the Akatsuki. Our goal is to capture all the tailed beasts. Your primary assignment, as you desired, is the Sanbi Jinchuriki, Yagura of the Mist. Secondary assignments are the other tailed beasts and targets on other side missions. Here are your cloaks. You'll meet everyone else later. My name is Conan, and he is Itachi, she said, motioning to the extremely emotionless male that was staring at them with the famous Sharingan. Hello, Haku said cheerily. In response, a large scroll hit him in the head. He glared at the person who threw the scroll. Itachi stood there, looking at her with arms outstretched. Conan and Kisame chuckled at his antics. For the second most mature Akatsuki member, Pain being the first, Itachi was a big troublemaker. That is your summoning contract gifted to you by your new leader. He has given you the contract of the Salamander, a spoil of battle he received when he single-handedly overthrew Hanzo the Salamander. Itachi stated, lazily twirling a kunai on his right index finger. Why did he? He wants you to get stronger. But aren't we? No, you're not strong enough yet. Can you? I'd stop interrupting you if you weren't so predictable. All of the other occupants of the room laughed while Haku fumed. The Uchiha gave the smallest of smiles. Flashback end. Yeah, this really saved us this time, didn't it? Haku asked. Zabuza merely nodded. So do we contact Pain-sama? I guess. Haku solemnly replied. Tsunami. Inari. I'm home. Tazuna shouted as he barged down the door. Following him, Shino and Naruto carried the unmoving body of their sensei. Hinata quietly slipped in, Byakugan still active in case of emergency or a sneak attack. Dad, who are these people? Tsunami exclaimed, rushing in only to stop at the sight of the ninja. We are ninja hired by your father to protect him while he finishes building the bridge. It's worthless. You'll all die, a small boy shouted from up the stairs before running back away. Tsunami rubbed the back of her head in embarrassment and sadness. That's my son, Inari. Please excuse him, he's just rather emotional because of all the tough times we've faced recently. She explained. Shino nodded. Do you have a spare room where we could put our sensei to rest? He's suffering from exhaustion, Shino explained. Oh, Tsunami said with a blush, showing that she only now noticed the masked ninja. Yes, we have a few rooms where you can stay. Please, follow me. Shino and Naruto nodded and took their teacher up the stairs. When they came back down, they sat together in the living room, watching out the window for any attackers. Unbeknownst to everyone else but Naruto, Kogari and 3 clones sat in the shadows, ready to act. Another 2 stood outside, ready to alert Naruto in case of emergency. So Naruto, since you're obviously team leader here, what do you guys plan to do? Tsunami asked after coming back downstairs from checking on Kakashi. Naruto glanced at her for a second. I think that Kakashi-sensei will train either Shino or Hinata a few days for the next 2 weeks, or at least until Zabuza shows up for round 2. He knows that I could hold off Zabuza and send him a message at the same time, so I'll most likely always be on guard duty. He'll then train one of us for a day, and the other will most likely join me on guard duty. But until he wakes up, we'll all just guard him. Tsunami nodded her acceptance at his answer and returned to her father. The 3 genin spent the rest of the day training for the inevitable battle that was soon to come.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.